And you're all set to go now.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm calling the select board meeting to order at 7 p.m. on February 15th, 2023. This is an entirely Zoom remote meeting. Welcome, everyone. I hope everybody had a nice Valentine's Day. So tonight, to remind the public, we are not taking public comment like we normally do at the first and the last of the meeting. The only public comment we're going to take, since this is a special meeting, is during the meeting for the specific agenda items that we are going to discuss. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to rearrange this. The center point of this meeting tonight is to discuss the regional dispatch IMA. That's why we're meeting. We've got a few more things to go through, but we're going to get through those first and do the regional last. So we've got time and we're not tired by the end of that one to do the other things that are also important. Okay, so we're going to start off with the review and approval of the building commissioner position because our current commissioner is going to retire on March 3rd. Mark?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so Mark and Vanessa have given us a proposed job description. So tonight we're just approving the job description. We're not going any further. On the 28th, we will decide whether to hire an outside recruiter to help us. We'll know more at that point as far as whether there are any candidates we can find on our own. Okay, so tonight, since we're back on Zoom, I'm just going to go around each time by who I see. That way I don't miss anyone. So Lisa, so I see Lisa, Andrew, Sam, and Chelsea. So that's going to be my order until we get to the regional, and then we'll probably mix it up a little bit there. So Lisa, you want to start out with this one?
Sure. Great, Kathy. Thank you. I had also reached out to the chair of planning board today, and I asked her if she had any feedback for this as well. Obviously, it wasn't as chair of planning board, it was in her personal capacity. So she had a couple comments as well as I, so I'll just go through them. Okay. Under statement of duties, on the last line where it says enforcement of local zoning bylaws, Mark, we'd like to add comma decisions of planning board and zoning board of appeals and other applicable regulations. So adding decisions of planning board and ZBA. And that is state law. So just tell me, let me know when you're good with that one. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I was looking down. So, and under supervision, second paragraph, last line, same things, after zoning bylaws, adding decisions of planning board and ZBA, which again is state law.
Okay.
And a question under the next paragraph, the 2 administrative employees and 3 part-time. Who are the 2 administrative? Is one Laura Davis?
Yes.
So
yes, because that's a shared position with conservation.
So my only concern with that is, I know it's a shared position, but Laura reports to ZBA as well, who if somebody appeals a building inspector decision, it goes to the ZBA. So it's kind of an odd, I understand how it works. I don't know how better to word it. I'm just a little confused and concerned that this person's going to report to Lori and going to report to the ZBA when there could be a conflict. So
Okay.
I'll just,
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with it because right now it just says departmental level of supervision. So I'm not.
that's fine. I mean, I'll throw it out there if anybody else has that same concern.
So Lisa, your point is that it's not clear that Laura specifically also reports to ZBA. Is that your point?
The point is that it appears almost as a conflict, Kathy. So she reports to Lori, but she also reports to the board that could hear an appeal of a decision or a decision that Lori makes.
But isn't that a fact? That's what she does do?
It is. But I'm just bringing it up that it was a concern. That's all. I mean, I don't know how to address it any other way because that's what she's doing.
Right. So it's a fact.
So
anybody
again,
else have an issue with that?
I think it's okay.
Andrew?
So what's the question is whether to keep it the way it is or?
Well, she didn't know how to change it either,
Yeah.
because what she's just saying it might be a problem, but the problem is the problem. It's what's stated here is factual.
I'm fine with the way it is.
Chelsea,
I actually had a different question on that section. I was thinking, why are we naming, actually assigning a number of employees? Like, I feel like, especially on the part-time side, I feel like that could fluctuate through time. So why don't we just say administrative employees and part-time employees? And then I think it eliminates that issue too, Lisa?
Better, yeah.
or you could even cut it. I thought the same thing, why be so specific when it could change? Why don't you just say employee provides departmental level supervision and stop? Well, why do you need to go into this much detail for what we're trying to do here? When we get people in, we can certainly give them, an org chart as far as what it looks like now, but I'm not sure that you need this on a job description.
Okay,
It does exist in many of the other job descriptions.
As far as how many people they supervise.
Yeah, it's a formatting, issue. It's been there before, to your point, it doesn't need to be there. I just wanted to note that you'll see similar language like that in other job descriptions.
So I think I tend to agree, and I'm not sure who to assign the credit to, but I think if you simply eliminate the numbers, that it identifies that they're administrative, probably I would say full-time administrative, or, well, no, you can't say that, can you? You simply take out the numbers, and maybe that helps to simplify the issue.
okay,
So I'm fine with that too.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
Next one is on page 2, second paragraph, enforces the provisions of state building code. In the second sentence where it says enforces regulations and requirements, I would suggest, and again, this came from Mimi, enforces the regulation, and instead of requirements, say conditions of permits, because it's not just a special permit. There's site plan, there's different types of permits. So our suggestion would be to say enforces the regulations and conditions of permits issued by the planning board.
Everybody okay? All right, keep going.
Okay. And just one other one, actually. I just was curious under the next paragraph, the interacts with this historical commission and its partners. It recognizes the inventory of historic homes. I don't know where this came from. I was a little concerned because the main interaction with historical is the demolition delay bylaw. And are we going to now require our building inspector to ensure compliance of historic preservations and pertinent bylaws and regulations? So I was a little sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I think the building inspector ought to be more involved in that. I mean, clearly the building inspector is not managing that process.
Right.
It seems to me building inspector has a lot to offer that in terms of a variety of regulations. So I'm not sure that specific language is critical, but I think that connection is an important one.
So are we going to require the building inspector then to oversee historic preservation? I mean, so for instance, we have the preservation restriction on 84 Main Street that falls under the purview of the Historical Commission.
Right.
Are we now saying that now falls under the building inspector?
I hope not.
Well, I do too. That's why I'm asking. So I was kind of confused with this. And I wondered if there was just a more general way to word this without getting specifics.
I thought that one really was the demolition delay bylaw. That's what we're really trying to get to there.
Yeah.
Not anything further than that. So that's how I read it. So
It's funny, it kind of says it without saying demolition delay. To me, it says it without specifying the bylaw itself. So maybe it's better, and I'm probably not the one to wordsmith it, as to make it a little bit more specific, because I know that the building commissioner has had in the past, significant interactions with historical commission
Mhm.
regarding issues with the compliance with the bylaw.
So, and again, as far as the historic preservation, maybe available as needed. I mean, anything, but I think there's overlap here with what the Historical Commission does. And I I would just hate for that to be the case. So maybe we interact with the Historical Commission and its partners as needed for the demolition delay bylaw in any, I don't know.
And other historic preservation issues.
Yeah, I think, more general, Sam, I think that, yeah, something like that would alleviate some of the question on that. And that was my last one.
You got that one, Mark?
I do. So basically, I think I'm just going to add on to at the end of the sentence of add on to after as needed for demolition delay bylaw and wow, my handwriting's slipping. It's early.
That was
And
Sam.
Then delete that whole second sentence, right?
And historical preservation issues, and then delete the whole second
Yeah.
sentence.
Right.
Okay.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
All right, Andrew.
I had one nit, which is under job environment in the third full paragraph. To instead of make constant contact with the public, I would say maintain constant contact with the public. Town departments and boards should be plural. And then one bigger picture thing I wanted to raise is under recommended minimum qualifications, education and experience. And the first line says bachelor's degree in a technical field with additional coursework in building trades or related fields. And this is an issue I think we've talked about a little bit before. There is a trend nationally towards removing requirements in job descriptions, and particularly in government positions that require bachelor's degree. So I would just say preferred. I mean, here, I think that the main qualification that this person needs is under the special requirements, must be certified as a Massachusetts inspector of buildings. So I don't know whether it's a requirement to get that license that you have to have a bachelor's degree, but I just think that as a trend, unless it's absolutely necessary, that we should be removing language from job descriptions that suggests that a completion of a bachelor's degree is absolutely necessary.
So
You'd recommend-
I'm
you'd do
sorry, go ahead,
preferred
Sam.
instead of recommended. You'd say preferred.
Just
instead of
preferred.
recommended.
Unless it's required for the, I mean, clearly we want the person to end up with a building commissioner certificate in the next paragraph, right? If they don't come in with it, we want them to get it. It sounds like that was my question. Is that what we're really saying there?
No, that person, the applicant must be certified as
Yeah.
a Massachusetts.
That's a
inspector.
state, yeah, that's a state requirement.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, like I said, I mean, if you want to change the word recommended to preferred, I know that Ms. Hale and I had talked about this, but it is recommended. And then the last sentence, which says, or an equivalent combination of education experience, because, at some point, we do understand that the experience piece is going to trump, obviously the educational piece.
Okay, but we do say recommended already. So what are we changing it to? It says
You
recommended.
do, so I don't know if it's semantics that we tend to like preferred rather than recommended, but.
I don't know that I see much difference, but going back to what you just said, this is important. Read that second bullet point. It says, or, it says must be certified as a Massachusetts inspector of building commissioners or possess a certification as a Massachusetts local inspector, but then subject to. So that's what I'm trying to say. Are we saying that they could come in as a local, but they've got to
Yes.
agree to take the test?
That's correct.
All right. So we don't know the answer to Andrew's question, which is whether having that certificate requires a bachelor's, right? We just don't know the answer.
I don't believe that it does. I don't believe there's an educational requirement for that.
I'd guess not, but
I would too.
There are, to add on to what Andrew just said, there are a couple of people in Southborough, and one of them was going to come to one of the select board office hours, but he didn't. I wish he had, who really wants us to get away from what we're talking about, which is requiring bachelor's degrees when it's positioned that the experience really should trump it. He didn't come. I wish he had. He's a well-spoken person. So it's worth considering that this is kind of a trend that is the experience that really counts more than the BS or BA. So I think we should keep this in mind as we look at people. But so Andrea, are you saying change the word recommended to preferred? That's what you want?
Okay, I don't know if, so I'm looking at the red line version, right?
I'm not, I'm looking at the one without it.
What in the upper left-hand corner, what dates label number are you looking at?
Oh, 24.
Okay. Bachelor's degree in a technical field with additional coursework in building
Andrew?
trades.
But the
Well,
title
yes.
of that is recommended, is what I'm trying to get to.
Right, if you
above
go
the
to-
title.
Bates 26, Andrew,
Okay,
it shows it right before it says the bachelor's degree. It's the subheading or the heading, the recommended minimum.
It
okay.
doesn't say required.
I don't know. I just think it makes it a little clearer to me to just put preferred after bachelor's degree in a technical field with additional coursework in building trades or a related field preferred.
Everybody okay with that? Which I think just amplifies the heading.
Yeah, it gives us the flexibility either way, frankly, so.
Okay, is
Yep.
that it?
That's it for me. Thanks.
All right, Sam.
Yep, I've got one thing that I'd propose to add to the essential functions. After the section that talks about reviews, zoning and building requests section. I would say the following: supports town permitting boards, parens, including planning board, zoning board of appeals, board of health and conservation commission, close parens, to advise as may be requested relative to permitting applications. When I was on the zoning board, one of the things that I found extraordinarily helpful was at that time, we actually had building inspectors who would be much more active in the permitting process, providing technical support that saved us a lot of time. And I think we've gotten away from that. And I think that would be an important function to expedite the permitting process and help the boards that may not have the technical expertise to connect with the building requirements. So I think that's a useful addition.
Everybody okay with that?
Mrs. Stivers, I assume you'll send me everything after parens?
Okay. To
Yeah.
advise, comma, as may be requested, comma, relative to permitting applications, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah, well, and everything inside the parens. Please.
Okay.
I got the first part, so I know where to put it. If you just want to send that to me, I'll make sure I get it in correctly.
You got the parens, right?
Yep, I've got the parens all set.
Little things.
Next, Sam.
Thank
That's
you.
it for me.
All right, Chelsea.
I just had one, I'd like to add to, I'm looking at the red line version, but it's, in the last sentence above recommended minimum qualifications, where it says coordinates with public safety departments on matters of emergency management or situational needs. I think we need to add, housing issues in there, because this person should, be available to Board of Health when we have, housing issues. That's it.
Everybody okay with that one? All right. Okay, so I got a few, and most of them, I just warn you, are nitpicks. Couple substantive things. Vanessa, question for you. Did everybody read Beth Milo's column today in My Southborough on this topic? Okay, so she brought up something. It's at the very bottom. So Vanessa, and we've got this in cap letters here. Zoning enforcement officer. Is that a description someplace? Beth brought up and said she can't find it any place. As far as why we call this person, in addition to the commissioner, the zoning enforcement officer, but we've got it capped in here as if it is a position. Now, where did it go?
I thought that was in the town bylaws.
It may be. I'm just asking. Beth said she looked for it and couldn't find it.
I think so too, Sam. I thought it was in there as well.
I believe it is.
Vanessa, can you check and just let me
Yeah,
know?
sure.
I'm going to answer her. So she's got that. Okay, so now going back to, so I'm looking at the clean version, just so you know, I'm not looking at the red line. I'm looking at the clean. Okay, so Andrew, I'm going back to one you said, and we can stick with what you said, or the paragraph on page 1 that starts with make constant contact.
Yes.
I don't like the word constant. I rather say frequent. I mean, constant sounds like literally 100% of the time. I don't want to scare them off and think that's all they do. So I don't, I'm not gonna get hung up on this, but I just said the word frequent sounds better than constant.
Kathy, can I just jump in real quick on the zoning enforcement?
Yeah.
Under code 174-24, it talks about this chapter shall be enforced by the building inspector as zoning enforcement officer.
Perfect. So
Okay,
that answers that.
sorry.
Thank you. Okay, what's the site again, Lisa?
It's on the town's code 174-24.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so
Yeah.
Andrew, your call on this one. I'm just suggesting that frequent sounds better than constant.
That sounds good to me.
I like it.
Okay, so second, then go down the next sentence where it starts with building, community, property owners, and there should be an and there, and state, federal, and local officials, which requires. And then I like the word skill instead of perceptiveness and discretion. So again, I'm telling you, I'm nitpicking. Are we okay with that one? Okay, now this is a judgment call. Going back up to the understatement of duties, it's the third paragraph. It's actually under supervision, second paragraph, second sentence. I just don't like the way this word sounds, persuasion. Given the nature of the beast of what we're talking about here, I just don't like the word persuasion. I'm not
Discretion?
sure. Sounds better
Discretion.
than persuasion. It says judgment and discretion. I like discretion. I just don't like persuasion.
Yeah, they shouldn't be persuading people.
It should be totally, I want, objective decisions with, no bias. I just don't like persuasion. Yeah.
So we'll
and
change that to discretion then, right? Is that what I
Yes.
heard?
I think that sounds
Okay.
much better. Okay, this paragraph, if you guys want to leave it, it's fine, but I don't like this one either. So same page under job environment. So remember the caption is job environment. The paragraph that starts with errors in either technical application. I don't know if we're really describing an environment. It just sounds almost, if it's not threatening, really negative. So that's your environment. Watch out, if you make a mistake, you're going to get us in trouble. I just don't, that paragraph didn't sit well with me as far as having this in a job description. But if you guys want to leave it, it's fine. I just think it's sounding good.
I'm fine with leaving it in.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah.
Lisa said, okay, so leave it in. Let's see. Got that one. Okay, this is probably my only substantive comment. One thing I want to add to the job description, and I'm looking at on the clean version, page 2, under essential functions. So start at the top of page 2 is the first, second, third, fourth paragraph. I think it probably belongs there if you agree. I want the building inspector to also be responsible for annually reviewing the fees that her department charges for permits, et cetera, and setting them to be, fair market value. But it's part of her budget process. She needs to go through the fees. And when she's talking about her budget, she needs to talk about that too, as far as what the fees should be, so that we know we are truly not collecting less than we should. I want to be market. It shouldn't be above market, but I just want to know that that's annually reviewed.
Could you
Yeah.
just put that in that
I
paragraph?
think Chelsea would like that one.
That paragraph that
What's that,
starts with overseas and collection of permit fees, comma.
Yes, yes. And I said that, and then I said is required to review fees charged on building projects conduct annually to ensure that they are market. Make up the word, whatever the word should be there as far as
Competitive.
yep.
with the
Okay,
market.
I like competitive better. Yeah, better competitive. But I want it done annually, not every 5 years, every 10 years, annually, so that it really is part of her process when she does her budget to look at that at the same time. He or she. Okay, so we answered that one. Okay, this one's a little silly too, but I still thought it sounded a little weird. Under physical requirements, the fourth sentence down, we're saying that the employee is going to regularly be required to use hands and fingers. Well, fingers are on your hands, so I don't think you got to say and fingers. It said and finger. So I just,
Which finger?
yeah, well, that's my point, right? You could use one finger.
That's where the
appropriate.
discretion comes in.
Yeah. So I don't think you need and finger there. I think you just stop after hands to handle. I mean, your fingers are in your hand. If you're going to use your hand, you're using your fingers.
Got
It
it.
really did make me think of using the wrong finger. So, okay, so that's all I've got.
In some jobs, you really need that finger.
Well, I don't think we need to point it out in the job description that it sounds like we're condoning doing that. Okay, so I think we're done with the proposed changes. So
Thank
Vanessa,
you.
you got what you need to go forward at this point?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And then the plan is to, on the 28th, for Vanessa and Mark to report back to us as far as where things stand, whether they're getting any interest on the way they've advertised this, and then for us to make a decision whether to continue that route or to hire a recruiter to help
Yep,
us.
it was posted today on at least a half dozen sites.
Okay. So if we do that on the 28th, do we want to go ahead in the interim ask Mark and Vanessa to at least get a proposed contract from Bernie so we could actually vote on that on the 28th if we chose to go that route? It'd
Yep.
save us another week.
Yep.
Mark?
See if we get a volume
Sure.
discount.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to get that. Does the board want to, it would be good, I think, if the board would approve the job description as amended.
Okay, and
Please.
before we do that, one question, when is personnel board meeting?
The day
February
before, the 27th.
27th.
All right, so that'll be soon. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the job description for Southborough Building Commissioner as amended based on all the changes we discussed tonight and agreed to.
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
and Cook is aye. So 5-0 to approve the amended job description. All
Thank you.
right. Okay, so now we got pilot committee. Before we get started, didn't we already approve me last meeting? Am I wrong? I mean, we can do it again tonight, but I thought we did.
I think we identified you as the person who will do it. I'm not sure that we actually took a vote to approve you, though.
I
All right,
think we
let's do that.
appointed, yeah.
Two votes won't hurt anyway. Okay, is Patty in the audience?
She is.
Yes.
Okay, can you bring her over? So we're just coming over. We've got 3 to appoint tonight, 2 of the ones that are designated positions, and 1 at large, which is Ms. Fiore. And again, while she's getting set, so you know me, Joe is and has been on the capital committee since its original inception, so I think we know him pretty well. So I don't see any reason to go any further with those 2, either one of them or you don't. And then we'll quickly talk to Patty because we know her well too. Patty, has she gone away?
Yeah, she was there for a moment, but then disappeared.
Here it comes.
She
There
is.
she is.
And you are muted, Patty. There she is. Okay, so as everyone remembers, it was Patty's citizen petition that has generated this committee. And she has gracefully and gratefully applied to be on it. So Patty, anything you want to say before we discuss appointing you?
I think that you probably all have heard me talk way too much about this committee and this project. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, so I'm gonna just go around as I see people again. Lisa?
Great. Hi, Patty. Thank you for coming tonight. I have no questions for you. I just thank you for stepping forward. I know, you brought this, and your reasons why. So, just thank you very much for stepping up to fill the seat. I think it's pretty important. So thank you.
You're welcome. I agree. It's important. It's been 4 years in the process. So
I
we played
remember
a long game.
2019. That's exactly right. Andrew?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Sam?
I'm all set also. Let's get it done.
Chelsea?
No questions. I think Patty, with all your research that you've done, that will be a good start for the committee and they won't be starting from ground zero. So I look forward to your committee getting started. Thanks for
That's
coming.
great.
Okay, so I will make a motion in one fell swoop to appoint Patty, Kathy Cook, and Joe Palmer to the newly formed pilot committee.
Term ending,
Excuse me,
term,
term ending. Well, it's a good question. So somebody help me. Are these, I don't know the answer to this.
would that be June 30th, 23, Mark? You're muted, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I started and I stopped. I believe the terms are gonna end the same with any other appointments on June 30.
23.
We will
Correct.
submit. So I'm going to amend my motion to say for a term ending 6/30/23.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
aye.
Chelsea,
I,
and Cook is aye, 5-0. Thank you, Patty. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you
Congratulations.
very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next is Chair's report. These two things are interconnected, so I'm just going to talk about them kind of both at the same time. And this is really important. So as everybody knows, EMC bought Dell, or excuse me, Dell bought EMC, and they have vacated their 3 buildings that are off Crystal Pond and Cosm Drive. They are trying to sell their entire property, which only includes the industrial piece of it with the 3 buildings. They're trying to sell their 34 acres that is zoned partially residential and partially industrial. So we had a Zoom, and this is our second Zoom, with the representatives of Dell at their request to basically, again, discuss issues that the town may be interested in as far as their process to sell these properties. On that Zoom were 5 or so people on the Dell side, which includes your 2 brokers that are trying from CBRE that are representing them. We had Marnie Houlihan on for a few minutes. She didn't stay for the whole thing. And we had Dorian Jasinski came on after she finished another meeting. We had Colleen from planning board, our planning office was on, and Melissa Danza was on. So it's a pretty good group, pretty representative as far as the town goes. The discussion really centered around the 34 acres. They're going to try to sell the 3 buildings either as a package or one-off. They actually think they can't sell as a package. They're going to have to do them one-off. But their focus is right now is really the 34 acres. So they've put together a plan that they've distributed to interested buyers that indicate what a potential buyer might be able to do with the property. And of course, since piece of it's zone industrial, the only thing that someone's going to be able to do with that piece of it, if they want to be residential, is 40B. So we talked about that during the meeting for the most part. And I apologize, Mark was there too. So sorry, Mark, I left you out. We spent most of the time talking about that piece of it. We updated them on the fact that the Park Central developer has received his project eligibility letter. And therefore, his project, if approved, will put us over we think it would put us over at least close to the safe harbor. It may not. There's still, let me just say this, there's still a difference in opinion as to what the number of units we need to get us over. On that Zoom, it was stated it was 45. After that Zoom, an email went out, said it was a different number. And then since then, it's been a different number. So it's still not clear what that number is. I think partly because Massachusetts hasn't finished the work they've got to do as far as updating the numbers for the 2020 census. You really need that to understand your denominator. So it's still a little bit unsure what our number is. But we did at least update them on where Park Central stood. So they understood that Park Central was much further down the process than anybody else is. They haven't even started on a 40B application, whoever might do this. They got that. And they also understand the MBTA Communities Act. They get the impact of that might have on their property. They actually understand that, that property could be part of the solution to Southborough's issues with complying with the act. So they get that too. These people, they're on the ball as far as it goes. So they started using the term friendly 40B, which is how they might have to do a 40B if Park Central were to shut them out, at least temporarily, from being able to do the classic 40B through the state. So that's how far we got. We didn't go much further. So there's just a lot of balls in the air as far as this project goes. I did take the time, which Mark will confirm, to make sure they haven't forgotten our tower, that we have no agreement to be on that tower. We were promised again that they're working on it. We will have an agreement to stay on that tower before EMC sells the property. So I did get that in there. So that's kind of where we are at this point. So everybody has seen the letter from Mass Housing. We've read it. We will talk about that at a later meeting. I just want to make sure we acknowledge in public that that letter has been received. We've seen all the points that were made by Mass Housing to the developers. So here we go. So, all right, any questions on those?
Well, can I just say that I very much appreciate this update, and this was discussed also at a recent SHOPC meeting about where the site of a potential MBTA, the required new district that would permit multifamily housing by right, could be. And so I just am hopeful that all the town's communications with Dell and prospective buyers will be, positive, that there really is interest in having this site be dedicated to affordable housing. So I'd like to continue to stay informed about this, and I sound very encouraged by the discussion that you just reported on, Kathy. Thank you.
So let me add one more thing as you drive around thinking about what could happen. So if you put your developer shoes on for a moment, the developers are well aware of the fact that 175 communities in Massachusetts have to at least consider doing something, right? You don't have to, you can pay the price, right? Which we talked about briefly at our Saturday meeting. But if you choose to comply so that you don't forego the opportunity to get some grants, there apparently are some developers that understand this and could choose to take a bet on what land a town might use and snap it up, right? And if that were to happen, then you may not be able to do a 40. There may be no chance to do any type of affordable housing because MBTA doesn't require that. That's not part of it. I
thought they allow up to 10%. Your district can include up to 10%.
I think it's not required though. That's what my point is. It's not required to do affordable housing.
Okay.
Okay. So that's all I'm going to say on this one, but there's just lots of thinking to be done as far as trying to make this a win-win. EMC, Dell, they've got shareholders to report to. They're going to try to maximize their profits on this. It's probably a small thing in the big Dell world, but it's not a small thing to the local guys that are trying to get this done. I don't think so. This is important to them to get this done in a way that they are considered successful too. So we've got to always kind of put our think about how they look at the world too, to try to get this, try to make it a project that hopefully makes everybody happy. And I think it's doable, but we've really got to we've got to think, we've got to work together, and we've got to probably work pretty fast. The MBTA is going to happen fast. Dale wants to sell this fast. They should have offers. They're expecting offers by the end of this month on the residential piece of it. So there's not a lot of time to dwell on this. We're going to have to start probably putting together some type of specific plan to work on this with them. Okay, so TBD. Okay, next item, I'm pulling off Brian's contract. It's done. It really is done. Kate has looked at it. Brian's looked at it. I've got the clean version of it, but I just didn't want to send it to you today and say, would you please read this in 5 minutes? I didn't think that was fair. Brian's fine with waiting to the 28th. Kate did ask the following question, and we'll see what you guys think about this. She said, do you really have a position called Finance Director, capital F, capital D? She said, I looked on your website. I don't see it. So I called Brian and I said, do we really have this position? He goes, well, actually, probably not. It used to be, his position used to be on the SAP. And on the SAP, it was Finance Director, but it's not there anymore. He's got a contract, right? Separate contract. So we may not legally have a position called finance director. This contract goes back a long way. As I said, it says she in it a couple times. So it goes back a long way, probably to Janice Conlon when she was town administrator. So Kate's asked the question. So I'm going to call tomorrow and answer the question with what I know. But so we may be taking out the term finance director and just call him treasurer collector, which is what he's labeled if you look at the website. So that's one thing to get resolved. Just making sure it's right. So anybody have a comment on that? So everybody okay if we take out finance director? Kate thinks we should because it really doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
I don't see anybody saying, no, don't do it. Okay, so that will happen on the 28th and you'll get it well before then so you can actually have a chance to read it and make sure you get it. Okay, there's that. ARPA. So everybody's got the little simple spreadsheet that Brian sent out through Melanie that shows the details of what we're proposing to use the tax relief bucket for. So we've already agreed to do this. We agreed on the budget summit day to ask Brian to find $500,000 worth of one-time things, which he did. It's just 508 and change and not exactly 500. So what we need to do tonight is specifically vote on this so we can adjust our ARPA spreadsheet. I've got the ARPA spreadsheet over to my left if anybody wants to see it, and I've actually already adjusted it. So if anybody wants to know what's left in the tax relief bucket after we do this, I've got that number. Anybody want to know that? Yeah. All right.
Please.
So in that bucket, if we vote for the 508, we're going to have 50,000, call it 51,000 left in that bucket. Plus, remember, we've also got a little bit of extra from the reduction in the Peninsula Trails grant. And then we've also got the 20,000 we can put back in that we allotted to the park working group that they don't need to do plans. So all in all, we've got, that's another what? So that's 35 and 50. So we got about 85,000 left in the tax relief bucket if we vote tonight on the 508 to be taken out officially. Everybody understand that? You agree? Chelsea, you're okay with the numbers?
I'm
Okay.
good. Yeah.
All right, so that's the first ARPA vote tonight. So let's just do these one at a time. We got 4 things we're going to talk about with ARPA. Okay, so I'll make a motion to officially approve using $508,940 of ARPA funds that are currently sitting in the general tax relief bucket and allocating those as on this spreadsheet for the fiscal year 24 budget one-time items.
Second.
All right, okay. I'm sorry, Kathy, was your motion for the 508,940 or for the?
Yes, 508,940. What did you think I said?
Okay, no, that's what I thought you said.
508,940.
So can I speak to something? Just to raise the issue about the fire all-terrain utility vehicle, because I know this is something that we've talked about before. And I've heard, differing views about how really necessary this is. And I think it could maybe be characterized as more of a want than a need. So I would just wanted to find out what people's views are about. I know this has kind of come in, come out. What are people's views about potentially taking that out?
And this is the night to do it because we're voting on.
No,
using this
because then I
money.
think
It's not
Chief
going to
Achilles is
town
here
meeting.
too, right?
Okay, so this is kind of the night to do this. If we're going to take it out, we take it out tonight. If we're going to leave it in, we leave it
I
in.
mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money.
Nope.
Yeah, I've been on the fence on this. I thought Lisa was pushing for it initially, then Lisa, I thought you backed off on it most recently some, did you not?
Well, I did, Sam, only because I didn't where it was going to be coming from out of the ambulance fund. And now that it's coming out of ARPA, I think at the last meeting, the chief made another good case that there's a lot of long driveways in Southborough and, it wouldn't specifically potentially be for one specific emergency that may occur. Brush fires, I think there's a variety of things. So I still am supportive of it at this time.
There are other funding sources that are potential for that one. I don't know. Grants
Does
or-
anyone have an answer to that?
I think generally those are not applicable for grants. That's just my understanding of this piece of apparatus. I mean, I think 5 years ago, I felt differently about this, Andrew, and I think they've been able to expand on the uses for it. And I also think that it gives the fire department a good opportunity to be involved at community events with this equipment as well. You know, they could go to summer nights with it. They could, go to community things. So I'm still in favor of this one. Additionally, I would say if we do vote this tonight, as well as some of the other items, I think we should encourage the department heads to go out to purchase them or go out to bid now rather than wait, because this means it would come off the warrant.
They don't need to wait. I mean, once we voted, they've got the authority to
Right.
go. For it. So there's no July 1st date here on these.
Right.
Okay, so I would characterize myself as being on the fence initially, but once, and I can't remember who even said to me, it may have been Jason Malinowski, described the long driveways, of which I've got probably the worst in this town, seriously. I didn't think about that. And remember, where I live, I know you guys hear this over and over, we have no hydrants over there. And so it would be nice to know that somebody could get our driveways really fast with a vehicle that I don't think that all of the current trucks can even get up. So that's what sold it for me. I prefer for things like this, when we know we've got other towns around us to share. The last time what brought this up was the accident on the trail, right? Where we ended up the vehicle from Westboro. So I'd still prefer we share, but it would take a while for somebody way in Westboro to get over to Pine Hill Road. So I think just because of the driveway thing, there's just a lot of snaky, hilly driveways in this town, and being able to have a vehicle that could get up really fast where others might not be able to is what's gotten me over that fence.
Kathy, can I have,
Go ahead.
sorry, can I just add one other thing? I think the power line issue on Pine Hill was another example where having a vehicle like this might have been useful, especially if we had to bring citizens out, with the roads being blocked and whatnot. So I'll just toss that in as well.
That's a good one. So Andrew.
I have to remember, Mr. Healy used to say, I can count the votes. So it looks like there's a majority of support to keep it in there. So
I think so.
so you get a motion that's made and seconded, right?
Yep, and discuss.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I want to talk about another item, if that's okay.
Okay.
On the annex, the furnace, I'm okay with reserving or earmarking the ARPA funds, but I think we need to have a more extensive discussion about the actual building and if we're keeping it long-term. I'm okay with pulling it off the warrant and using ARPA if we decide that's the route we want to go. I just don't know that we have made a decision on the building yet.
Well, if we agree with you, we ought to pull that 15 out of the 508 and just leave it in the ARPA bucket that we could always, tonight we're trying to literally say, we've agreed, we're going to use this money for these things. So we should pull it out as we agree. Okay, so Lisa?
Yeah, I'm fine.
With pulling it out?
Yep.
Okay, knowing that we still may do it once we get more information.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm okay with pulling it out, but just where that was another one where I previously felt maybe we should remove it, but I have a recollection, and I could be wrong, that at one of our meetings, John Parent felt that it was pretty important, because just generally speaking, we don't want to have a town building, even if it is one where we might be, first off, any plan to dispose of this property is going to take quite a while.
Yeah.
And generally not a good idea to have any building that's owned by the town to have absolutely no heat. So, I mean, by just taking it out now, that doesn't preclude us, if this thing breaks or if there's a real problem, from coming back and taking care of it. So I'm okay with that, but I was persuaded a little bit more to be more supportive of this. I'm recalling, I think, something that John said, or it could be something that someone else said.
No, John Parent did say that.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know that
we have, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
I don't think, Andrew, that we, at least I don't know enough about what is being used and if there's other options for that building or for what's in that building to go elsewhere. And does it really make sense for us to keep it on the inventory or not? That's what, I don't want to sink money into it if we're going to get rid of it in a year.
I understand. I think we're probably not going to get rid of it in a year.
And how are we gonna get rid of this thing? So I agree, the chances are unlikely, but at least this winter is not a horrible winter. And it's, you know, knock on wood, it's probably almost over. But I don't want people, I don't understand who's doing what in the building, but I still, if there's people going in to do certain things, I don't want them to be cold. I mean, that's kind of cruel. So it's 15,000. That's why I didn't get too excited about it. Capital recommended it. So it sounds like Chelsea would like to take it off. Lisa, you want to take it off?
Yes, but keep it in a bucket to be able to reuse for this. Yes.
It's going to go back in the tax relief bucket. That's, you know, we don't have, so we'll keep it in tax. We got money in tax relief. So we just shouldn't forget about it. You know, we ought to decide for sure once we get more information. Sam, are you okay taking it out for now?
I'm fine to take it off, but if it looks like we're going to keep the building for a while, I think, I believe John Parent, we need to do the update here, so.
Okay, so Andrew, you're okay with taking it off for a while?
Yep.
Okay, so let's do the math. So 508, 940 minus 15, 500.
$493, $540.
Everybody agree it's 593, 440?
493,
Excuse me,
right?
493, 440. Got that? Okay,
Yep.
so I'm just gonna amend the motion. So the motion is to approve using $493,440 of ARPA money that's currently in the tax relief bucket as outlined on the spreadsheet in front of us, except that we are going to remove the 15,500 from the DPW annex. Okay, all
Second,
right. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
and Cook is aye. So 5-0 to approve 493, 440 of ARPA money, especially coming out of the tax relief bucket. Okay. All right, next ARPA item. We had talked about possibly funding the newly to be approved tree fund article with some of the, what we thought was going to be excess money from removing the 100 trees. We don't have that much excess. We thought it was going to be about $40,000. Remember the original allocation between the warrant article on October 13th and ARPA money was 152. Karen told us that the contract came in less with Stumpy's. Our share of it was 110,000. So I rechecked with Chris Leroy and Vanessa, and Chris has said he thinks the final number is going to be something around 140, which includes the cost of the details that have been needed to remove the trees. So it's pretty darn close to what we've got allocated. So I'm not sure it's worth, you know, taking. I mean, it's close, so close. I don't think we should do it. Is my recommendation. We should leave it alone and find money elsewhere to do the initial funding of that article if that's what we choose to do. I just don't think this is a good place to do it. Lisa? That's a yes.
I agree. Yes, sorry, I agree.
Andrew?
That sounds okay to me.
Okay. At some point, we'll close this out. We just got to get it done. It's going to be done in the next couple of weeks, right? The weather's been great, fantastic. So they're going to get it done and we'll know finally what the cost is, and then we can relieve whatever's left over. But I just don't think we should do it now until it's truly done. Bills are paid. Sam?
Okay,
Okay. Chelsea?
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so there's nothing to really vote on there. We're leaving it where it is. Okay. Sidewalks. So as we know, we've got to decide how to use the money by the end of 24. We've got to commit it, and then we've got to have the work done by the end of 26. Sidewalks are a long-term project. We've got $704,000 that has been earmarked for this by the ARPA committee. In past meetings, we all five seem to want to do this. We haven't talked about details, but I don't think anyone doesn't want to spend some money on new sidewalks. So I'll stop there and make sure that still seems to be the case. Okay, so what I did between last meeting and this meeting, I called Jason Malinowski to talk to him about what we might discuss tonight as far as a plan to actually get this going. We don't have a DPW head, and we don't have a Public Works Planning Board that we are ready to ask for advice from yet. We've agreed to get the DPW superintendent in place first before we attempt to figure out how to work with the PWPB. So it seems to me that the viable choice here is to turn this over to capital. Even though capital normally vets projects, they don't initiate projects. They take what departments want and take a look at it. I think this may be one that we make an exception to, that we actually ask them to do the legwork on this and come forth with a recommendation to us as far as what sidewalks that they think should be done and where and approximate cost. So that's what I'm trying to get discussed tonight, is what the procedure should be to go forward and try to get this going before too much more time passes.
Kathy, is Jason on board with that path?
Yes.
Okay,
So
Can I
called
ask
him first, so yes, he is.
thank you.
Follow-up question.
Yes, of course.
And I think this is another question that might have been raised at a prior meeting. Okay, the pavement management system software. Does this also have any capability to kind of in an objective way there, because there are fewer streets with sidewalks than there are streets, right? So theoretically, it shouldn't be a reason. It shouldn't be that difficult to identify the streets that do have sidewalks and to use that software to assess the condition of it, and then kind of an objective way you find what places need the most repair, etc. Is that something we'd consider, or we're really talking about building new sidewalks here rather than just
Mhm.
repairing existing sidewalks?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so for this. And Andrew, the
Sam, you want to
pavement-
handle that one?
so the pavement management system isn't really relevant.
Well,
Okay.
the pavement management system actually doesn't, it's not aimed at sidewalks particularly, although you could use it, but we didn't buy that part of it. But what it does do is it provides a video record of all the street miles in town. So one could actually do an assessment and effectively drive along all the streets and visually look at the condition of the sidewalks from your office, which is very helpful. But the system itself is not going to make recommendations about new sidewalks, but there will be information there that you could actually look at to see where the sidewalks are or aren't without having to drive around everywhere potentially. But again, I think the issue for me is to have somebody, and again, we had, I think it was VHB, Mark, who did the last sidewalk thing in 2015 or whatever.
I was
and
going to
made
say, it's
recommendations.
been a number of years since we looked at that, and I think it was something that was done very quickly.
Yeah, but they had a map. We actually got a pretty interesting map available of where the sidewalks are. And I think that Capital could take advantage of that. There's some places, for example, where neighborhoods have good sidewalk networks, but the neighborhoods aren't connected. So you could drive a new sidewalk between a couple of neighborhoods and double the pedestrian miles there potentially very easily. Those kind of things are great. And they talked about key north, south, and east west routes like Corderville, north, south, and Parkerville and so forth to make sure there are good sidewalks around the schools, et cetera. So I think there's a fair amount of data that Capital could take good advantage of and come up with some good recommendations.
Okay, so back to Andrew. Andrew, are you okay with the broad plan of basically asking Capital to take charge of this?
Yes. Should we talk about what kind of time frame we're looking at here of?
Yeah, we're gonna get to the details in a second because Mr. Malinowski said we're gonna need some money. So I'm just trying to get a general idea of whether everyone is for the broad proposition that Capital is going to be in charge of this. This is gonna be the responsibility to come forth with a proposal.
Hey, Kathy,
Uh-huh.
can I throw in also, I actually, I think I wasn't on the Public Planning Board at that point, I don't think, but I actually heard the engineering report on that presentation. And having access to the engineers who did that would be hugely helpful because they have a lot of practical input to say, here's the places that, much easier to put a sidewalk in, or here's how you might think about this, et cetera. So I think as Andrew is suggesting, some engineering dollars in there as well would be very valuable input for capital.
Mr. Malinowski agrees. So Sam, you're okay with the broad plan of letting capital do this? Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to first. Okay,
Yes, yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Okay, so I am too. So we agreed that they'll do it. Now let's talk about the details of what that means. I'm sure we're not going to answer all the questions tonight, but broadly, Jason said we're going to need some money to get some help here. So we need to understand that they'll come, they will come forth and say, this is what we think we need to do our work. They'll flush it out as far as the amount of money and who they think they need to consult with. So that's probably one of the first things, and it can give us some more details about how they plan to go about this. Once we have said go. As far as timing goes, Andrew, I think we probably should set some type of broad expectations so we keep this moving. Again, we got to the end of 24. I don't know what it really, I meant to call Carla today, but I forgot what it means to truly have the money designated. Does anybody remember what the law actually says? What does it mean as far as a capital project? Do you have, what point are you considered meeting that test?
I would defer to Carla, but I believe you've got to have a contract. You've got to have something, no offense, more tangible than simply a vote of the select board for the expenditure. So I think you've got to have the money formally committed or expended by the December 31st of 24.
So if it really means a contract, we need to make sure we know that and pass that, and capital knows that too, so that they understand that they will need to get busy to be able to get that far by the end of 24. I mean, it's only a year and 9 months away. It's a big project. Okay, so everybody is okay with the tentative plan here? Okay, so Mark, can you talk to Jason and let him know the vote we're about to take tonight, so that he knows he's got the official green light to start working on this and thinking about the details, and he's welcome to come to us when he needs questions answered, including the money he thinks he's going to need for this.
Yep, I will put that on the schedule.
Okay, and before we vote, let's just talk about the money for a second. So how much do we have in the warrant for this year's town meeting for the engineering article?
25,000.
25.
Okay, do we have any other money right now, any place else that they could use?
There is money under capital's control.
Right, and that's what we approved at the November 1st, 21 town meeting, I believe, special town meeting.
I believe so. I think it was the fall meeting.
All right, so maybe let Jason know that, we've got the money on this warrant that could possibly be used if that passes. He may have some still left over from that, and I think they do. So he'll put it all together and come to us with what he needs to do. But that's, to me, the two places to go. Anybody else have any other idea of where to go as far as?
Well, if you're okay, the $25,000 article, my understanding of that is one of the reasons for that is if there's kind of unanticipated things that come up during the year. For example, like the traffic study that we did, things like that. But if you're talking about getting engineering for new sidewalks, I mean, I would think that it could be very significant. It could easily take up the entire $25,000 article. So I really would be disinclined to use that. The engineering.
The other obvious place is the 704 includes what they need for the engineering. So we can always do it that way too. Or use some of the excess money we've got that's not part of the 704. I just like to see us get as many sidewalks as possible out of the 704. I wouldn't mind for, capital come back and say, well, I know you said 704, but if you had another 300, we really could do a lot of really good sidewalks. So I wouldn't want to necessarily limit what they're doing. We can always say no, but why not have them go forth and say, if you really wanted to put sidewalks where they really should be in Southborough, this is what you should do. And then we can always cut it down, just like they did with the recent paving contract. Here's your wish list, and this is what we can do now. But we know now also what we could do in the future. Get it all done at one time.
Kathy? I see this as a two-step process. One is to get engineer or somebody who actually knows how to build sidewalks and what's involved to help do the initial planning process to say, here are the places that you should think about doing more or less, et cetera. And then once you sort of get the plan down, then there's more engineering money to actually design something that create plans that people can use to build sidewalks to the extent that you need to have detailed drawings for that kind of stuff. So to me, there's a useful sort of first step to lay out, here's what we want to do, given an understanding of what's involved in making sidewalks here versus there kind of thing. So that's not as expensive, I would think.
But does everyone agree that we've always got the ARPA 704 to use for this too? So we know they've got, and they can get started right away. They don't have to wait for a town meeting vote. They don't have to wait till July 1st. If we just let Jason know right now that, we want him to come in front of us as far as what they need, but we would be willing to use that money, that's the 704 bucket, to get them started here.
Sorry, Kathy, can we also find out what's left in the bucket from the warrant article from the fall of 21?
Very easily.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's take a formal vote of this so we can show Jason that we are all for this. So I will make a motion to ask Capital to lead this project for new sidewalks to be funded by ARPA money and report back to the select board as needed as far as questions, etc.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
and Cook is aye 5-0. Okay, check that one off. Okay, so here's a difficult one. We've got to decide on the economic development coordinator soon. And tonight might be a good night to decide one way or another which way this is going. I think it's still probably a split vote. I understand that personnel has not approved the position, so I get that. Mark called me this week with an idea about how we might approach this. So I'm going to let him talk in a second. But one way to fund this is to do what the select board decided to do last year with Board of Health, which is for the first year, use ARPA money to fund the excess cost over the 19.5 position, including the benefits. So the full excess cost, which I believe we think is 60-something thousand bucks. Last time I heard, that math should be checked. So do it for the first year and see where it goes, and then take it back up next year and see if it is something we really want to put in the budget going forward. I understand that when you hire someone, you'd have to tell them that this has been funded for 1 year, where there's no guarantee after that. Out of fairness, you'd have to do that. But the reason I wanted to talk about Dale tonight and Park Central, et cetera, is I think we really need to make sure we have the business aspects of what could happen in both places well represented. So I am just convinced that we need to have a full-time person to do the things that need to be done in this town to try to improve the business community, the business climate, what we've got here for business. So I'm willing to take a chance that I'm wrong, that this really is not going to accomplish very much. I just think we've got to put some money into this to try to restart the business part of this town and really bring in some new businesses, good, vibrant businesses that we want. And I don't see how you do that with a 19.5-hour position. On top of that, this week, we discovered another grant that we could have applied for that we didn't, that most towns got. So we definitely miss grants. I'm not going to say frequently, but I can think of 2 that we've missed that we would have gotten if we'd applied for it, most likely. So I do want someone that is going to really focus on writing grants. So that is the topic for this one. So I'm going to start this one with Chelsea.
So I think doing it this way makes it extremely difficult for an employee. And I'm just got through 2 employees that we set up this way. and it's not easy. It's, there's so much uncertainty. And I think it can become a morale issue. So I don't love the idea of it. I would rather spend the money, if that's what we decide to do, on giving department heads the option to use a specialized consultant to apply for grants. If they have one that comes up, or if there's some help that we need on a short-term basis to help with what you just described, Kathy. I just think with the financial outlook for next year, using $500,000 of ARPA towards capital this year, I'm very cautious about going into FY25 with a bigger deficit. So I have concerns about tapping into what we could potentially use for FY25 and creating a bigger hole. So I wouldn't be in support of it.
Andrew,
Sure. So now I think, were you suggesting that any money that would be set aside from ARPA for this it's not in there right now, so would come from another place?
I believe that there would be support from the gentleman that I'm looking at to take it out the National Grid bucket.
I think, Andrew,
Okay.
I would
So
be
here-
willing to agree to that. So,
Here's where I'm on this. Kathy, I completely agree with you. I thought, though, that this one, the budget numbers for this year, not great. And the numbers that we have don't include the full-time EDC position. I thought that to the greatest extent possible, and I think that, this also happened with the Board of Health staffing situation a couple of years ago. We want to get as much consensus between the select board and the advisory committee as possible on something like this. And I think that from the budget summit that we had at on the Saturday meeting, there were a bunch of different views about this position from the advisory committee. And the thing that's really struck me is that, some of the things that the reactions you hear is it actually would just be better to just, rather than have a split position, to just have it be a full-time EDC coordinator position rather than a split position. So I think that there's some more kind of work that we might be able to do, and maybe in connection with an effort to try to, to hire someone who really would be good to the best extent possible, to have some more support for this, maybe at a fall town meeting. So, I completely agree with you. And I think that if we were to take some money out of the National Grid bucket and reserve it for this would just kind of keep the issue alive for maybe a further consideration at a fall town meeting. But where there's going to be already a complicated town meeting agenda coming up next month, this discussion there's just such a variety of views on this that I don't see that there's really a consensus about this. And I think with some more work, we might be able to get more of a consensus about what about the job description aspects of this, right? I think I'm optimistic, although I'm realistic, because I think some people just will never support this idea, but I'm optimistic that we might be able to convince some more people about the need of making more of an investment than just the current 19-hour level of staffing for this position. And maybe that just takes the form of, a position that is really just a full-time EDC coordinator rather than the split position.
So let me just interject and then turn it over to Lisa and Sam. If we were to go the route that I put on the table, which is to use ARPA money for the excess cost, we've taken it out of the hands of town meeting and advisory. So that would be the effect of doing it. I don't think advisory, last I talked to Andrew Pfaff, I don't think that advisory supports the full-time position, but I could be wrong. They may have changed their mind, but I don't think they do. I think it's a split vote there too. I don't know what the split is. So there's that. That's what we'd be effectively doing if we did it this way. We can always bring up the ARPA vote anytime we want to do it. It doesn't have to be done tonight. But I do think tonight we've got to decide whether it's going in the budget or not, because we're out of time as far as that goes. And it sounds like there's not support. There's not 3 votes to put it into the budget full time. Again, I understand personnel boards has different issues with it. Some of the issues I don't understand. They seem to be talking about the position itself versus what it should be rated and what it should say versus whether we should have it, which is our job. Mark thinks that if we take a look at the fact they're combining the CNA into one schedule, that we could tweak the part-time position to make it work, but I'm not sure we want to go that far either. So it doesn't sound like, based on what I've heard, that there's support for using ARPA money tonight to do this. And it doesn't sound like there's support to put it into the budget full-time. If we can get through the hurdles we got to get to do that for fiscal year 24. But it does sound like there may be some support for bringing it up again at a later meeting and continue to discuss this. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years now. And I can tell you, I was on advisory when I sat there with other very well-respected, valuable members who thought the budget of EDC should be zero. Select board came to the meeting that night and disagreed strongly. Dan Kalenda disagreed strongly. The vote was split. So we approved the budget, but there were some there that wanted it to be zero. And I've heard the same argument for all these years, which is, what's the connection? Prove what you do. Show us a direct connection between what you do and a result. And that is just never going to happen. You're not going to have someone that's going to sign a lease in Southborough because of EDC. They're going to sign a lease because they like where it is. They like the space. The rents are good compared to what they are in some other town. And EDC can help with that. They can help answer questions, whatever. But they're not going to be the reason someone signs a lease. But it would be helpful to know that the business community's interests are reflected and represented when we have meetings such as the one with Reliant as far as their lease goes. So we do everything we can to make sure that that rolls over, and part of the discussion with EMC as far as what's going to go in there. So I still believe in this position. I really think we need a full-time one because we need to shore up the business community in this town before more businesses leave. We really need to look around at other towns. They are much more vibrant than our downtown. We need help here. So I'm going to stop because I think this really is a 2-3 vote. So Sam, you want to weigh in here?
Excuse me, being one of the two.
Yeah.
I guess I'm frustrated. I think we're losing every opportunity every day we don't do something here. And I think we have a chance to actually accelerate this process. I certainly understand and appreciate Chelsea's point that it makes it more difficult to hire somebody if the funding is not certain past a year. But to me, that's not a reason not to try. I think there's some potentially capable people out there. I've heard the EDC folks talk about potential candidates, and having the chance to move forward with this now, particularly as Kathy suggested, with the Dell property being up in the air and other things going on Route 9. Westboro is doing some interesting things development wise. It would be great if we could coordinate better with, for example. I think we're just missing out if we don't do anything. We sit on our shovels here for another 6 months or year or whatever. To me, it's a shame if we do that. So, and I'm happy to redirect some funds out of the National Grid property to make this happen quickly, and we'll be very disappointed if we don't, but I realize that's not the prevailing view at this point, so enough said.
They haven't been able to fill the part-time position yet. They've hired Claire Reynolds to basically fill in with the contract at $50 an hour. So the proof still may be in the pudding. If 5 months from now they still don't have someone, I still think we've got to bring this up again. We can't leave that position vacant completely. So I'm not willing to let this one die completely. It looks like it's going to be postponed as far as.
No,
the
and
city-
I'm not either.
Okay. All right, so does everybody agree where we are tonight is we are not going to support putting the full-time position in the budget for fiscal year 24? So
Kathy,
far-
can I give
Yep.
my thoughts on this too?
Did you not do it, Lisa? I'm sorry.
No.
I
Oh,
knew
that's
I-
okay.
Sorry, I did not omit you on purpose, sorry.
No, 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 I know.
Routine going around in a circle. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
That's okay. So I agree with both Chelsea and Andrew. I think we have an opportunity here. I think with the job description, I still think it needs to be tweaked in some way. I don't know that the grant writer is the right place to live with EDC. I think there's other opportunities that we can take the time and explore and come back to a fall town meeting. Andrew, I think that's probably the best course to find exactly what it is that everybody needs and how we're going to get there. I have some ideas on the grant writer as well. I mean, but again, everything costs money, and I'm still not at the place with the budget where it's at this year to go full-time at this point. But I think we do need to continue to explore what we could do for EDC and, you know, the best path to get there.
So Lisa, I'm for a grant writer too, so I would be happy with a full-time EDC coordinator and a grant writer. As a contractor, independent contractor,
Mhm.
1099, that, it wouldn't matter that it's only going to be for a year, right? It's upfront. You've got a lot of, college kids that are getting a master's degree that have to take a grant writing class as far as their degree goes. So we can always bring that back up too, as far as using ARPA
Yep.
money for that, just to try it. Let's see what happens. And then, if it didn't look like it worked out the way we hoped it would, then we wouldn't renew the contract.
Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Okay, and just one point, I know I made this point at previous meetings, but I'm trying also to kind of listen here and to address the concerns about that I've heard that the description that we had is trying to take away clearly there are some department heads that do an excellent job and other boards and committees that do an excellent job pursuing grants on their own. The idea of this was never to try to take away from that or do anything, and it really was. I think one of the genesis of this was the early July retreat that we had, just formulating ideas and goals for this year. And I think it always has been kind of a well-intentioned effort to think about, okay, we want to promote maybe instead of having where we don't necessarily need to have 2 full-time employees, maybe combining some job functions that are related. That was kind of the whole spirit of it. But the main takeaway that made me a little more optimistic at the joint meeting with advisory on Saturday was there are some people who are interested in increasing the level of hours and moving it from a part-time, completely unfilled position right now to a full-time position that is devoted to EDC coordinator. I agree that the grant writer function, it sounds like maybe that's something that's more well suited to the contract. I don't think that long-term EDC coordinator is something that's well suited to contract. I think that having one person who their sole focus is, and I think the Reliant example is an excellent example. One person that, that person's job is to stay on top of that discussion and try to keep the lines of communication going as much as possible, or else it's not clear who's following that, or if sometimes there's someone that's lost track of it.
And can I add one final thing, Kathy?
Of course.
I think part of the dilemma is, Andrew, is when we hired a part-time person, we got Marika, who just did it all. And, we know that she put in extra time to do it, but I think there's kind of the boundary for me. It's like, well, we had somebody and she did exactly what we were looking for. And for the budget, it was done within the time frame. So again, I still think that there's certainly discussion here. I'm just not ready to do it tonight.
But Lisa, I would take what you said and conclude something different. She, by most accounts, worked close to full time and just didn't get paid for it. So she was a full-time job. She spent a lot of hours. coincidentally, I ran into her husband over the weekend, and we had the best conversation. I told him how much Marika is missed. I said, Marika. And they're coming back in 3 years. They're going to wait till their daughter graduates and from the high school in Japan she's going to, and then they're coming back. So I said, oh, well, that's interesting. I'll make sure everybody knows that she is coming back at some point. Maybe not to South Korea, but they are coming back to the US. Okay, so I think we've gone as far as.
Well, just
Go
one
ahead.
last thing. I mean, after she left, we've had this part-time position has been unfilled, right?
That's right.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I think that really shows of, you're
I
seeing the results.
Yeah, I don't think we're being very practical here. I agree with you. No one seems to want this job, so you're just going to end up with a 19.5-hour job that's just open. And so I really do strongly disagree with this. But, Chelsea's probably going, Kathy, you're a hypocrite. Look how you disagreed with what we did with Board of Health, and now you're acting like you want to do the same thing here. I just think this position is so important right now to this town that we really need to do it. But anyway, okay, so enough for tonight. I think as far as this one goes, there's no vote to take because we're not voting to do anything. All right, the last thing before we
Well,
get, go ahead.
to that point, I thought what you were suggesting is if Sam was willing to take some money out of the National Grid article and you save some on basically some would be reserved so that, I mean, we still need to have a job description that gets
Mhm.
approved and put into the SAP, right?
We do have a job description for an economic development
Okay.
And it's part-time, but they're merging, the C and A together into one. So Mark called me this week and he said, you could probably use that job description, just tweak it a little bit and it would work. But, I wish we could get to an agreement on this and we're really not. So Andrew, I did suggest using the ARPA money tonight, but I didn't think you were going to support that. So I didn't like it was worth voting on it. This was going to be a 2-3 vote. But we can always do that. We don't have to do that tonight.
To use the ARPA money to fund the position
The
for,
excess cost over the 19.5 hours, whatever that total excess cost was. And someone did the math recently. I thought it was even you that said it was like $60,000 when you include benefits, because that person would qualify for benefits too.
For 1 year.
But we don't have to do this tonight. That's my point. On ARPA, we can vote anytime. But tonight, we really, I think, have to decide whether it's going in the budget or not. We've got to get the budget wrapped up one way or the other, because, we've got basically 2 more meetings before it goes to the printer.
Mhm.
but even if we were going to use it for ARPA, then there would be no budget impact because this would only be using the excess, right? Okay.
Right, that's right. So we don't have to vote on that. We don't have to take that vote tonight on ARPA. I think we do have to decide whether we're going to support it going into the budget. Subject to getting the job description approved and everything vetted by personnel board that they should be vetting.
Okay.
Okay, so just again, we've agreed we're not putting in the budget for fiscal year 24, correct? Okay,
Putting the
Very reluctantly, but
the-
yes.
you mean the
I'm reluctant
full-time
too.
position. The
as a
full-time
full-time,
position,
that's right, that's right.
but the half-time position is in there.
Yeah, that's
right?
there, that's there. It's
Yeah,
just
okay.
unfilled.
Yep.
With Claire substituting until they can get that filled.
Yep,
But it's my
okay.
understanding is Vanessa's still here, that there's been hardly any applicants for it, and the ones that have applied didn't seem to be appropriate for it, is what I've been told. I don't know if that's changed.
Yeah, we reviewed applicants last summer and did not find a suitable candidate. And then the EDC was very focused on, all right, can we change this job description? Can we look at expanding this in this way? So we have not gone out to re-advertise the position, for some months now. So that's the status of the recruitment right now.
So we've only advertised this once.
Correct.
I would say we shouldn't re-advertise.
Well, especially now, if we're going to say to EDC, it looks like it's going to be 19.5, although so you're right. Maybe they should try to start advertising again to see what they come, because it's hard to,
Mhm.
if I'm going to say, well, it's clear that it's not going to work because they don't have someone for it, then we've got to have tried, right? You can't not try and say that. So I think they've got to go back to re-advertising this now and see if they get any applicants that look like what they're looking for.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll work on that tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we ready to move on? All right, so the last item is a referral of a citizen's petition to the planning board because it's a zoning article. It's from David Perry. It involves the property that's between Woodland and Walgreens on Route 9. So our job tonight is just to vote on referring it. We're not going to discuss it tonight as far as the merits of it. Okay, all right, simple. All right, Lisa, you want to make the motion?
Sure. I make a motion to refer the citizens petition article from David Perry to the planning board.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor? Lisa?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Sam?
aye.
Chelsea?
Aye.
And Cook is aye, 5-0. So there you go, planning board.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I just want to point out one thing tonight. I did have a conversation with Bob Heavey this afternoon. He called me because this was on the agenda this evening.
Can you explain to everybody who Bob Heavey is?
I'm sorry, Bob Heavey is the owner of the parcels in question within the proposed citizen petition article. And he just wanted to let me know that he is not involved with this petition and has no interest in this position moving forward. He wanted the board to understand that. And I had told him that, it's probably better for him to have those conversations in the planning board hearing process when planning board takes this up in the near future.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, so now we are to the main topic tonight, which is the proposed IMA for the Regional Dispatch Center to be located in Westboro. So before we get started, a couple of updates for everyone. I think everybody here knows it, but it's for the public. So we started off with 7 towns that were interested in doing this. 3 dropped out fairly early. We're down to 4, which included Hopkinton, Grafton, and Westboro. Grafton and Westboro voted in favor of the IMA last night at their meeting. Hopkinton voted against it in a 2-3 vote. So at this point, there is Grafton and Westboro that have voted yes, and then our turn. Okay, you agree, Chelsea? Okay, so we will be taking public comment on this, so we'll have to watch for hands. This is why we're here tonight. So Chelsea, did you want to show the PowerPoint that we got?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to take over?
Vanessa, do you have it ready to share?
Yes, hang on.
Okay. And Kathy, Mark's gonna walk through the slides.
Okay.
Okay, so again, I don't want to, I'm not going to take credit for this. This was a presentation that Westboro had prepared, and there was some people that watched this last night and thought this might be at least a good table setter, just to give a brief overview of where we are in terms of the project. So again, regionalization. It's a collaborative approach to common issues, and in this case, emergency response between multiple municipalities. It allows municipalities to share costs, resources, and benefits. Massachusetts currently has 32 regional emergency communication centers. There are 7 more currently pending, and Southborough is exploring. The acronym is REC with Grafton and Westboro. And again, as mentioned by the chair, Hopkinton is no longer in consideration, having voted not to support at this time. Next, please. This is simply just a map. I'm not going to dwell on it. It just simply shows you where the consolidations for the regional communication centers are in the state. You'll see that they're a lot more prevalent out in Western Massachusetts. But you're starting to see them pop up now more in the central part and Eastern Mass as well. Next slide. This is just a little bit of a descriptor as to the population and the total 911 calls that we have with regard to Southborough, as well as the two potential partners, Grafton and Westborough. As you can see, we're a little bit on the smaller side in terms of both population and calls. And there's not a whole lot more to say about this. Next, please. The local regional dispatch, what we would look to do would be a standalone district operated by its own staff and management. The oversight for the district would come from 3 boards. The board of directors, each town would have a member, would have 1 vote on the board of directors. There would then also be a finance subcommittee and an operations subcommittee, which would consist of the fire and police chiefs for each municipality. The rec is planned to be located at the Hokamonka Pond site in Westborough. Applications for initial round of the regional public safety grant funding are due on March 2nd. Just a little bit about, and I think, Vanessa, if you want to go to the next slide, please. A little bit about the site. As I think we have discussed, this is a Superfund site. On February 9th, Westborough officials met with DEP and EPA and had a conversation with them about the site. The EPA and DEP officials are supportive of the project as presented. Obviously, there's going to have to be some ongoing testing and things that are done. The site has been deemed safe for occupancy. But the district would have to engage a licensed site professional, an LSP, similar to what the town has engaged for Breakneck Hill, just to ensure that any plans that are being developed, any construction that's being developed is going to be in conformance with the requirements of the site. The benefits of moving forward with the regional dispatch, in FY22, the cost for dispatch service in Southborough was about $446,000. Based on the work that was done by the Collins Center in studying this issue, the estimated assessment for Southborough as part of a regional dispatch center would be about $180,000, and that's after you back out Hopkinton from the calculations that were presented in the report. Southborough's current capital plan has an item in there for a placeholder for $900,000 for dispatch and emergency radio replacement costs in fiscal 29. This is going to be to upgrade our 911 equipment. Obviously, moving to a regional approach means that we're replacing the equipment once and we're splitting it among the number of communities rather than each community having to take care of that cost on their own. The estimated recurring cost savings is about $260,000 annually. There is an asterisk. Well, one of the members did point out to me, well, there's nothing that's tied to the asterisk. So let me tell you what the asterisk means. Essentially, there are going to be some expense that we are going to have to look at between the chiefs as to how we're going to address the staffing in the station. Obviously, not having a dispatcher there, we'll have to address that issue. I know the board has mentioned, I believe at the last meeting, should we decide to move forward, that is something the chiefs are going to need to look at and begin to develop a recommendation for. Obviously, there are additional grant and state funding opportunities for the regional dispatch centers. It does seem that the funding is moving in that direction from state 911. Increased service capacity, you're pooling your resources, your overall ability to respond to larger scale events. We do seem to be having events that do cross the jurisdictions of our towns and into our neighbors' communities, and so it's good to be able to help to address those issues. Again, mutual aid, same thing. Personnel, standalone districts with dedicated dispatch staff and management, and also creates capacity for individual town staff who are currently overseeing dispatch operations in the community. Next, please. So finally, as the chair alluded to, we are looking at next steps. Select Board in Westboro and Grafton both unanimously approved the IMA last evening in separate meetings. Hopkinton voted not to move forward with this. Westboro's fire chief and the Collins Center have identified startup and construction costs for which the grant will be applied. That application is due to the state by March 2nd. The police and fire chiefs here in Southborough, obviously, as I said, are going to have to start taking a look at how we're going to address those staffing issues that will come as a result of moving to a regional approach for dispatch. And I think that is something this board has already said that they would be, we would have to do as a result of moving forward. And then Westboro would be starting to take a look at putting together a lease agreement for the Hocomonco Pond site for consideration and negotiation with the district. So I think that gives you at least a broad brush of where we are. I know this board has brought forward a lot of concerns. I believe at the last meeting, Mr. Stivers had 11. And I think that the IMA document that is in front of you for consideration this evening takes a lot of those comments into consideration and the changes that have been made to the document. I just want to say that I do appreciate the considerations of the other communities to make the changes in order that to make the document a better document for Southborough. So I appreciate the collaboration in the process, but I think that gives you a broad brush of where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Purple. That was great. Okay, so the plan is for us to discuss this, see who wants to comment from the public, continue to discuss it, and actually vote tonight on supporting the IMA, the most recent version of the IMA, given the deadline for submitting the grant. So I was going to start this one out and just remind everyone that when the gentleman from the state came in front of us in November, he stated that the state prefers, we could have done one of two things. We could go forward with a executed IMA, or we could have gone forward with basically just an expression of interest, a letter saying we would like to receive a grant to entertain doing this, a much more loosey-goosey, non-legally binding agreement. He clearly stated that the state prefers the signed IMA, that we would get more consideration, therefore more money, if we went that approach. So that's where we are tonight. That's part of this decision, is that the signed IMA should result in a larger grant to come to this group to build this new rec. So having said that, my what I'm going to say now is it doesn't reflect the IMA. I think we've done a good job with the IMA as far as improving it from where it started. So kudos to everybody to getting that done. But I think that we aren't ready to do this tonight. I think this has gone too fast. I think that a lot of what's been done has been done because of the timing of the grant, which we have had a recent experience with. We need to be careful as far as doing that. This is a very, very serious decision. As far as I'm concerned, I know there's, there's a get out by June 1st if we wanted to. I know there's a way to terminate the contract down the road if we wanted to, but as far as I'm concerned, those aren't good things to happen, especially the one to terminate down the road. So I don't want to go in this with the thinking that, well, we can change our mind. I really think we need to go in thinking that this is a done deal. We've made a good, solid, long-term decision for this town. That is a serious decision. And we feel good about it. Other states have always had regional dispatch centers. We're just kind of slow to this. I wish we had started off that way. We wouldn't be having this conversation because change is hard. We know that our local dispatchers don't support this. I don't think any of the dispatchers support this because it's a big change. So we understand that, but I think our job is to look beyond that and see what's truly best for this town. I actually support the concept of regionalization of dispatch. I just don't think that we have done all the homework we need to do to make sure we really understand this and have thought through all of the details. So I just want to make it clear, I actually am convinced that regionalization in some form is the better alternative to what we have now. Chief Achilles has stated that the issue we're trying to solve, the biggest one, is the lack of redundancy in our operation. We only have one person per shift. If we have complex events, we have multiple events that occur simultaneously, it's a problem. So that to me is still the main issue we're trying to solve with this. So I support regionalization in some form. I just don't think we're there yet, and we've really vetted this the way we need to. So these are my specific problems. The site. We basically haven't looked at any site but this one. We basically had Westboro tell us this is where they want to do it. Hopkinton wanted a different place, and they kind of got shut out of that conversation. So it's like the site was just picked for us because Westboro needs a place they need to use the space for something. They've got a committee formed to figure out how to use the space. We know that this space is environmentally challenged, and I'm saying that nicely. I've done a whole lot of reading last couple of days, as much as I can possibly get my hands on as far as this goes, and I am really, really concerned about this site. We've got places in Southport that would have worked for this. EMC, we've got the tower sitting right there next to one of their buildings. So we didn't consider any other site, which I think is not appropriate. We really should have had a full-throated discussion of an appropriate site. Instead, we just latched onto this one to begin with and never looked at other sites. Lease. I want to see the lease before we go forward with this. I want to see the lease and see what it says and make sure that we really are going to be properly identified as far as this dirty site. But I want to make it clear, the identification is important, but I don't want to put our people on a dirty site. I want to make sure that we know that we have put them on a place that is safe to work. They're going to be there long hours, and we need to understand more about the site than we do right now. There are people in this town that think that this site is really, really polluted, in that we haven't done our homework as far as understanding it. And so to hear that on the 9th, the DEP and EPA came out and said it's okay. Well, have they written a report? I just want to make sure by talking to someone that really knows this area, that comes in front of us and says, yes, the steps are taken. This is what it is, and your people really will be safe. There's not going to be an issue down the road that is going to come back to haunt us. I think we've got to be really sure of that. So that's one big category of issues I've got. Financial. I still don't understand the finances here. To say that the Collins Center and the Westboro chief put together the cost. I mean, they didn't have the cost a couple of weeks ago, so I don't see how you put together the cost that quick. It's got to be a real rough estimate at best to get this done. I still don't understand why we are convinced that we're going to get all of the money we need to do this. No one told us that when they came in front of us. There's $40 million to be spread among all applications this year. And since applications aren't in, I don't know why there is any certainty as to what we're going to get. And I really do want to understand the finances in more depth than I do now. I absolutely agree there's going to be a savings here, no doubt about it. And I think that is an important component of this decision. But we don't have to make the decision tonight. The money is going to continue to come in to fund these grants. It comes from cell phone surcharge. So it's not if we don't do it this year, we can't ever do it. We certainly can. Third thing is Framingham. We know now that Framingham is considering some type of rec. I don't think it's exactly like this. I think it's different. But I'd like to understand more about that to see if that's a better alternative than joining Grafton and Westboro. I don't know, maybe it's not, but I still would like to understand that. Fourth, I do want to look at all options of somehow solving our problem. This may be the better one. I don't know if it is, it very well could be, but I still want to understand whether lopping onto an existing rec like Foxborough or trying to solve our problem locally, or this is the better choice. And we've never had that kind of discussion. Collins Center was not engaged to look at all alternatives. They looked at this one and came back with a very nice report, well done, but they didn't look at alternatives and come back with recommendations as to what would be best for Southborough. Fourth, I think the issues that we've talked about recently, including tonight, which are what do we do with no dispatcher here as far as what we call a dark station. I think that's important. When I sat down with Kyle the night that we had our meeting canceled with the DPW interview, it was kind of eye-opening. We went through I tried to make him give me specific examples of where his concerns were. I know why he's concerned. I mean, there's a lot of personal concerns as far as moving here, but he had some concerns that made me rethink this whole thing. And the example he gave with going dark was, he gave me 2 examples of times where it was really important that there was a dispatcher in that building where they sat with something that happened in the lobby. So I think we've got to say this is what we're going to do. I know that we think that neighboring communities think that this is not a problem, that they've done it and it's okay, but I really want to have that discussion and make sure that we agree that that's not a problem. So that's my operation piece of it. But bottom line, we don't have to do it right now. I don't think we spent the time with this. I think we've had a deadline and we have gone, we've gotten a lot done. We've had some discussions, but I don't think we've had the complete discussion we need to have as far as this whole thing. And I really want the site looked at to make sure that this really is the best site for this, and make sure we've looked at choices and not just this one site that clearly Westboro wants to fill because of the problems that it has. So I just want to start off with that because I am sure I'm in the minority as far as this goes, and then let the 4 of you basically take it from here as far as the discussion, and then we'll bring the public in, and then we will discuss more, and then we'll vote. Okay, so Lisa, I'm going to go around again so I can make sure I get everybody. So I'll start with you.
Okay, Kathy, I don't know if you wanted to go to Chelsea to maybe comment on some of the things you said. She has been working on this for 18 months for the board. So again, and if not, that's fine. If you just want to go in order, obviously that's fine too. I just didn't know if there was anything she wanted to add to.
I was doing this on purpose so she could kind of wrap up everything when we get, so she hears from the 4 of us, and she's done this the most and has more information, so she can kind of take all 4 sets of comments and basically comment on those and put her comments inside. I was doing this on purpose to let her go
Okay.
last.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think we've all talked to a lot of people. I know I have offline about this, and it's one of those where there's no gray area. Either somebody supports it or somebody doesn't support it. One of the things that's important for me is we've had both chiefs agree that this is the path that we need to go at this point. I think we've put them in a position to be able to guide our paths in some way, and to know that there may be a liability there as well. So then I looked at, what do we do next? What is the correct path for the town? Is it the regional center? Have all of them been successful? No. I think some of the first ones, I know we've been supplied some information going back to court cases going back to, I think it was 2010. I think a lot of things have changed since then. And I think there's some very successful centers out there. We've all seen Foxborough. And I think we can all agree that done correctly, it can work and it could benefit the towns. Well, then I looked at what would we need to do to fix some of the concerns here with our own. We'd have to make some major investments, including personnel. Looking at 2 dispatchers, which would be potentially 3 to 5 more people, which would be a large increase, obviously, in salary and benefits. There'd be, I think, additional training is one of the keys. If that's the path this board is going to go, is to stay in-house. There is a lot of training that needs to take place, plus upgrading the equipment. Knowing that the 911 grants are focusing more on the regional centers going forward. I also worry about that if we wait, we're going to miss in the agreements being able to have a board, have members on the board, having a higher assessment later. Have there been learning curves with others? Yes, but we have an opportunity here to get in on the ground floor to make this the center that we want it to be, and that our taxpayers expect it to be as well, to chart the future of Southborough. Change is always hard. Change isn't always good, but you can't be afraid to move forward and to take the opportunity. We started out with 7. Do they know better than us? Is that why they left? I think some of them left because certain towns wanted the centers to be where they're at. Dark Station, I think if we do go forward, that we need to create a path sooner rather than later on what this board expects, you know, what the taxpayers can expect. And I think we would need to share them, share those thoughts with them as well. So based on all of these comments, I'm fine with moving forward. I would hate to lose an opportunity. And Kathy, I understand all of the points that you made. I shared some of those myself as we went along. It's tough to weigh. So that's where I'm at. Thank you. Oh, one question, if I may. Chelsea, when you get to the follow-up, did you, if you could answer as well, if you had any conversations with other select boards or members from other towns that have kind of gone through this process outside of Westboro, Grafton? Can she answer that now,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yeah.
I did have the opportunity to speak to a selectman out of the Foxborough rec. The initial conversation that she's from the town of Easton had was around the finances for this and trying to get some cost savings there. And she definitely had concerns about moving forward to go to a rec. She had seen ones not be successful, but they did move forward with it. And she said that she is extremely happy with the results of it. Obviously, we've all seen the Foxborough site, so we can understand the successes that they've had. But she said just to be able to keep up with the technology has really been a benefit to the community. So she was it was very encouraging to talk to her. And she said, you just need to make sure it's the right decision for your community at the time. And so I actually explained to her that we didn't look at it initially from a financial perspective, but can see the cost savings. So it was a good conversation, and she was very positive about every aspect of it.
So let me add to that. I sent everybody an article early on from a paper that covers Foxborough, and it raved about theirs. So I totally agree with the analysis of Foxborough. And remember, what I'm saying tonight is I support regionalization. I'm absolutely support it. I just think we've gone too fast. I want to slow down. I think we haven't done what we've got to do to support this IMA at this time, because tonight is the night. I've just got too many questions, but I absolutely support the concept of some form of regionalization. It's just the timing that I am advocating for tonight. Okay, Lisa, anything else from you?
No, that's it. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, Andrew, you're on.
Yeah, I am also prepared to vote to approve this tonight. I think that throughout this whole process, one thing which has been very important for me is just the strong support of both the police and the fire chief for this. And I also have in mind that particularly Chief Achilles had stressed that if we were to regionalize, he thought that there was value in doing so with our mutual aid partners. And that, I mean, I think there's something significant about the long-term trends here, and just the fact that the state has been encouraging municipalities to move in this direction. I think Lisa put it well. This is one where certainly there have been, I can't really count the number of meetings we've had that have touched on this topic. So, I feel like, Kathy, respectfully, what you're suggesting is it's not really it's making a decision not to decide. And I feel like I have comfortable with the process that we've followed. I think that we've been well represented in these negotiations. And I know that there was a negative vote from Hopkinton, but I thought that it was significant that there was unanimous support from the select boards in Westboro and Grafton too. And I think this is an opportunity to go in where we have at least two other partners who are committed to this. And I think the trend is going to be that communities that get cold feet and don't get into these districts are going to be in a position where they're eventually looking to join other recs, and they're not as well positioned as they would have been if they had entered at an earlier stage. So that's where I stand.
Stan.
Okay. I'm basically still up in the air on this. I appreciate a number of comments that have been made. I fully support a regionalized approach to this. It's clearly the way the world is headed, and it's made increasingly easier by advancing technology. It's going to get easier and easier to do this, and it clearly works well for many districts out there. Not perfect, but there's a lot of data that says that this is an effective way to deal with this. And I don't think that we can avoid the fact that it makes good economic sense. We can't afford to staff like we would get staffing in Iraq. But even more important, I think, is the public safety issue, and that having a good backup for significant events, complex events, et cetera, I think is critical from a public safety standpoint. And I think you get that in Iraq much more effectively than you would get on your own. So that to me is another important reason to actually regionalize this. The issue for me boils down again to, I steal from Kathy's list here. I'm still not convinced about the site. I've read the EPA stuff. I know that the Westboro public health person said that it's okay on that site. I'd be interested in feedback from our Board of Health about their view of, is that a site that they would be comfortable working in, sending their families to work in, et cetera. And I also think that if we do move forward with this, very strong indemnification language and a lease agreement, so that Westboro, as the owner of the property, stands behind any claims that might be made relative to the site, seems to me to be critical to our fiduciary responsibility here. I also have a lot of questions about the financial details. I've seen the high level summaries, but I'd like to know what goes into them in more detail. And I'd be interested in sort of an external review of those details, maybe by a current rec financial person, to make sure we haven't overlooked anything that's important. I'm also interested in understanding if the grant money doesn't come through as we expect, what does that mean in terms of the impact on the participating communities here? And look at it over more than a 5-year period. The state grant pays for the first 5 years. What happens after that? I haven't seen numbers that look out for those timeline on that. So again, that would be something that I'd be very interested to know. Also, as people have suggested, I think we need to the dark station issue and understand the cost of that and what we're going to do. I think that we need to not have a dark station, and that adds some to the cost here. So those are my sort of high level issues, and I've got a number of points in the IMA, and I appreciate a lot of the things that we talked about at the last meeting on that have been addressed. Thank you, Chelsea, for getting those points in. I'm glad that the other communities have been more accommodating on that. I'm just going to run through a quick list here, some nits, but some more significant points. Initial paragraph, the final word rec is in quotes, should be in parentheses also. Section 1, line 4 needs the rec instead of just rec. Section 5C, I'm a little confused. It says the rec receives 911 calls and other calls on pre-specified numbers like alarms and animal control calls. And section 6A4 says the rec receives non-emergency fire police regular business line calls. And so I thought after this was implemented, the town would still, police and fire departments would receive regular business line calls. So I think, at least I read that as inconsistent, and seems to be, we need to be clear on that point. Section 8B, lines 11 and 12, I don't think it's clearly stated. So it should be unless the remaining members of the board of directors by a majority vote authorize, et cetera there. Section 8C5, I don't understand the language. It says all telecommunications costs, maintenance costs, and expenses for equipment located within its community shall be the responsibility of the Metro West RECC district. That sounds to me like it's saying the REC is paying for our local communications infrastructure, which I don't think is expected to be the case. Again, I was confused by that, and that would be useful to clean that up. And then section 10, line 18 talks about participating municipalities instead of participating communities again. And then section 16, second paragraph says the staffing goal should be of no less than the current cumulative total of the participating communities. I thought that should be no more than, and we're supposed to actually get economies out of this, so we ought to have staffing less than the total of all the community staffing at this point for dispatch, I would think. So I thought that was backwards. May not be. And then my really big issue is last time I talked about question against an assessment that we thought was unreasonable as a single community. And the language has now been changed in terms of the termination process to allow for a much quicker termination. If one community feels like they have a problem with whatever, they can get out more quickly now, which is good. However, there was language in the prior draft at the end of section 10 that talked about the district taking on debt responsibilities. And the prior language basically said that it gave details about the issuance of debt and said that the debt had to be approved by each participating community's select board for it to be issued. And that whole last paragraph is now missing there. And so that, in my view, puts us at risk for a debt issuance that we don't agree with, that could be a real financial burden to us without having any recourse to not approve it other than terminating the agreement. So
Sam, I thought that in that section, we referred to the statute, which required the select boards to respond.
Okay, does that statute, it does refer to the statute. I didn't actually look at the
Okay,
statute.
let me just double
That-
check, but I'm
That's
pretty
before
sure
board
that's,
approval. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that we talked about, just replacing the language. Let me just look it up quick.
So if that is included there, then that takes care of my concern about that, because I thought that was an important check to have in there.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the issue was trying to be a little bit too verbose about it. And if the MGL changes, then you've got to go back in and make the change in the document. But if you reference the MGL, then it will automatically move with the language.
If that does it, so.
That's what was said the night Liz was with us.
I didn't think she talked about that. She talked about the indemnification stuff, but regardless, if it's there, that's fine. I can look it up too, Chelsea.
Well, let's make sure, because that is important. So Sam, you are, just so you know, you're a little bit hard to hear, but I think we
Okay,
got most
sorry.
of it. I don't think it's sitting, I think your internet's maybe blinking a little bit. Was the last part, the substantive issues, that
Yeah.
one, then and I agree, it sounds weird that we're not gonna have any less than. Why would you say that? Why wouldn't you say no more than?
Or more than, yeah. So that struck me as odd. So anyway, again, I wind up at the point of saying that I'm prepared to vote in favor of this contingent on getting answers to some of the questions that I raised. But if I don't get the answers that make me comfortable about my concerns here over the next 60 days, let's say, then I would be in favor of voting to not proceed after the June 1st deadline. So I'm, again, have some significant concerns. I think regionalization is great. I think that if we don't do this, I don't see that this precludes our doing a regionalization deal with somebody else at some point down the road. And for example, a Foxborough is always out there, and we could do that quickly if we chose to. There may be others like Framingham or others that make sense as well. So I think, again, regionalization, I think, is important, and we should do it as soon as we can find a good partner to work with. But I'm not convinced, this is not immediately obvious to me that this is, wow, let's take it before we lose it. So I'm sort of still in the testing phase, but I'm prepared to vote to support it tonight.
Okay, so Chelsea, before you kind of summarize what you heard from everyone and decide what you want to talk about specifically. I'm still going to vote against this because I am really concerned about the site, and I really wish we would take more time. I wish all three towns would take more time. But I know that Westboro and Grafton are probably not going to do that. They've got a unanimous vote, and they seem all along to have been the most anxious to get this going forward. But I think we owe it to, with our jobs, to between now and June 1st, assuming we vote tonight to sign this IMA, to address some of these issues we've all brought up, including the dark station, including the lease, and especially the site. It's my understanding that there is a list of types of businesses, et cetera, that right now are precluded from using that site. And there are things like daycares, I think, that are specifically excluded. So I know I wouldn't put my child in a, even if the daycare could be there. So I think we've got to use that standard in the end before June 1st to make sure that this site is really going to be safe, or whatever they are doing to try to clean this up. And I know there's many efforts have been made. I know there's a process. I've read the last report, and I know there's another report coming in a year. So I'd much rather wait for that report to be done so that we really know for sure that this place is safe, and that we really investigated other sites that could be even better, which I don't think was ever done. I think the site was just kind of picked at first, and I don't think enough diligence has been done on the site, but I'll say no more. So Chelsea, why don't you wrap up what you've heard so far, then we'll see if anybody from the public wants to speak.
Okay, so I'm just going to respond to a few of the comments that were made. We did look at a state 911 option, which they were about to sign a lease for Milford when that came up. I don't know what the status of it is now. And the reason why we didn't go forward with that was because it was going to, state 911 was going to set theirs up first, and then the towns could roll out. So it was going to be several years before we would have the opportunity to get into there. So we did look at another site outside of this one. The Framingham one, as I understand it, may not be a district. It may be a host district, which means that a town runs it versus it being equal partnership with each town. And so I would have concerns about joining that type of rec. Some other things about the site. One of the reasons why the site is good is because of the height that it's at, and Motorola's gone out and done an analysis on the radio strength from that site to each town, and they were happy with whatever. I'm obviously not an expert in radio signaling, but they were happy with the potential of being able to reach all of the locations in the towns. I did spend some time with Melissa Danza, our conservation agent, to review all the reports from EPA. And she went through everything with me, and her one question was if we were going to be able to pull water from town water versus the site, meaning a well. And the response from Westboro was that we would be able to pull water from the street and not have a well. That was definitely going to be a concern if it was well water. So I did spend a decent amount of time with her. I would encourage any of you to go talk to her about what she saw in the reports in terms of the contaminants. I'm not going to do it justice. She's a much better resource and understands it a lot better than I do. But after speaking with her, I did feel confident in the reports that had been done by EPA, that they have done their due diligence on this, and that over the last 10 years, the contaminants have not increased. And she said, just as long as they continue to do that, do the testing and make sure it doesn't increase, then she really wasn't concerned about it. She did mention to me that a lot of times Superfund sites are repurposed as 40Bs. And so she was actually very happy that that this was a suggestion for a dispatch center. She thought it was a good use for a Superfund site. So I would definitely encourage any of you to go speak with her.
And she's read every one of the reports?
She went through them with me. Yeah.
She's read them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of information on the Westboro website as well for the repurpose committee that they have. So there's additional information on that site as well. So that's pretty much on the site. In terms of the IMA and the communities that we're working with, I cannot say enough about how well we worked together to get the IMA from point A to point B. I think I would say our chiefs probably say the same thing about the mutual aid relationship that we have. So I feel very confident that we can continue to work collaboratively with Grafton and Westboro. And I think that will speak to being able to build the center. So I hear you, Kathy, on the timing. But I also think that we know we have a liability, and I'm not prepared to double our dispatch budget right now. I've sat down.
Nor mine.
So I've sat down with Chief Achilles and listened to some 911 tapes. And I do think this is the right time to do it. I think that I'm concerned for the safety of our public safety officials. I've heard from both fire and police. I understand the concerns. I think that we need to address concerns, but I think we can do it in a fiscally responsible manner. And I'd like to get some sort of plan before June 1st with the chiefs on how we would, what the options are for the station. I also think that we should continue to work with the communities before June 1st on a lease. So I would encourage us to kind of keep moving that forward and know what we have before that June 1st date. So I think I hit on most of the points.
Chelsea?
Sam, I probably, go ahead.
I did look at the citation and it has what I was looking for in there, so thank you.
Okay, good. Okay.
So, thanks.
So, and again, this is a big document. This is 4 different towns, 4 different councils looking at it. So is it perfect? Probably not, but I think we made a lot of progress, and
Yeah.
I think we addressed a lot of the main issues. Sam, if you can send me a list of the
Yeah.
ones you pointed out, because I couldn't hear you that well.
Okay.
But I don't think anything was substantial.
The only one, how about the less than and more than?
Less
the
or
statement
more
number?
is-
Okay, so that was a request from Hopkinton specifically.
Oh, that's easy.
So that might be one that we
Okay.
can change. Maybe.
I mean, it makes
Okay.
no sense to say no
At
less
least as
than.
many as we have now. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to send this, but on, there was one language issue where I do think it meant there were 2 provisions that they seem to be inconsistent with each other. I just want to highlight them. And I was
Okay.
just, okay. 5E2. So 5E is specifying that, okay, special operations are as follows. Fire, police, EMS calls for service are to be answered at the Metro West Rec. And then E2, non-emergency or business calls other than the 911 emergency line will be answered at each participating community's fire, police, headquarters, etc. And then, so I get that basic distinction, right? The rec
Yeah.
answers fire, police, EMS, non-emergency business calls go to the police station. So then
Right.
section 6 is rec duties and responsibilities. And then A4 is the duties and responsibilities the rec shall include the following, and is 4 is receipt of non-emergency fire, police department traffic on a regular business line. I didn't understand that.
That was on my list too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's one I need to check on.
So it's my understanding that the non-emergency calls were still going to go locally. That's not true?
That is true.
Okay, so that's to me part of the dark. We got to deal with that
Yeah.
issue as far as dealing with, we're not going to have a dispatcher there 24/7 to handle those calls and to deal with traffic coming in the front door. So just to reiterate what I think you're saying, when this goes forward, is that between now and June 1st, we're going to address that issue. And we're going to basically require that a lease be done. So we know what the lease says. And I would still add a third one to it. And I think the public would probably appreciate this, is to bring someone in that is an unbiased, objective expert in the field of contamination to assure us that this site is appropriate to put human beings on 8 hours a day. I really want someone to say that. So we've got time to do that. So those 3 things will go a long way to satisfying me. as
Okay.
far as, not wanting to withdraw from this by June 1st. Chelsea, what's the timing, do we think, on receiving the grant notification? Well, we saw the
I don't.
email from the state guy that really wanted us to change the 30th to the 1st, right? Because they wanted a chance to be able to redeploy the funds if we were to withdraw or this were to go away. So to me, the implication is maybe June. So that, he knows we're in on June 1st. So they know they've got a decision they can make that would stick. So it sounds to me like it's June based on his email, but I'm reading between the lines.
I don't have a clear
That-
answer
that's-
on it.
we don't have to have it done. Okay. All right. So anybody else want to comment before we see if there's anyone in the public that wants to come over and comment? Okay. All right. Well, right now, I don't see a hand up. Does Vanessa, you agreed? There's one. Okay, so bring over John Thorburn.
Hello,
Hi there.
is my picture gonna appear?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, I thank you for the opportunity to, wait a minute here. No, like you-
So now you're muted if you don't know. So Mr. Thorburn, we can't hear
All
you.
right,
Okay,
here
there
I-
you go.
Here I am. Okay, I really thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I have before, and I'll probably reiterate some of the things that I've said before. I have 50 years' experience in this field, in the fire field and dispatch. I served 11 years as a dispatcher in this town. And I feel that I'm fairly qualified to speak on this matter. The there's been a lot of talk about what and I'm enthused that you have to look at what's going to happen at the station. It's very, very revealing that we just heard that regular business calls and everything else will still go to the local station and not to the regional dispatch. This grant, if you decide to go this way, they cover the first 3 years of your expenses, and then you have to pay your assessment. We have to really look at what we're doing now. I got to respectfully disagree with the fire chief. We have existing problems. I know, I've worked there. We have existing problems, but I feel that they can be best addressed, as I said before, with an investment in another dispatcher so that you have two, because one is entirely not safe. One dispatcher cannot handle an emergency medical call, dispatch the apparatus for the fire, give advice which he has to give by law on the 911 system, with advising the people that are on the other end of the line on what they should be doing. For instance, if they have to do CPR, he's got to walk them through that. At the same time, he's got a dispatch apparatus. He's got to dispatch the police department. He's got to handle all the communications. In the meantime, he can get another call. And that's when I know from working 11 years there, I had times when I was literally scared stiff. But at that time, before you got the new dispatch center, you had police officers, usually one of them at least in the beginning, that was in the station. many a time, Sergeant DeLuca, we would get a 911 call and he'd be looking over your shoulder and he'd start his police department on the way while you were getting the information. They don't have that anymore. There's only the poor old one dispatcher in the station. I know the fire chief has problems with his fire, the dispatch. Kelsey, you can say that you've heard bad tapes. I don't think you'll avoid that entirely in a regional dispatch because there'll be personnel that make mistakes, no matter where they are, okay? The prime way to help with that is to have two people in there. That is essential. The other problem, if the fire chief has a problem with the dispatch or the police chief has a problem, that really, in my opinion, should be a separate department, a communications director or whatnot, that those problems go to him or her and they work it out. The fire chief and the police chief have enough to do running their departments without having to worry about a third entity. And you got to remember the dispatch is the primary point of contact for the public. Whatever they do first influences the whole operation. If they go bad, the operation goes bad. It starts off on the wrong foot. So it's important. Number one here, I believe it's essential that they have two dispatches. If you think you're going to save money with a regional dispatch, you're not going to save it because you've got to make changes at the headquarters. You've got to continue providing answering service there, from what I just heard. The existing problems can be addressed locally, and you'll have a better control having your local dispatch rather than having a regional. The board's time is very valuable. I hate to see you go through this, and I'm confident that it won't be entirely satisfaction to the fire chief or the police chief when they go regional. I've seen it. There are successful centers. Primarily, most of them are out in the western part of the state, where it's a far less activity than there is here. And the 911 system provides equipment and they provide training. And that is all comes into the town, especially 911 training. They have to be certified by the 911, and that's all provided. So I just hate to see the town get involved with this and 5 years down the road or 3 years down the road have to go back and start reoperating in local. You've got a good dispatch center, facility wise. I know some of the Grafton, for instance, he says he's got to replace his radio system. We just replaced our radio system here. It's all digital. It's all the questions that come into play. I hate to see you recommend this, and my vote would be to not proceed. Thank you.
Mr. Thorburn, before you leave, stay for a second. We respect everything you said. We respect your background and your experience in this. And definitely have listened to you all along. You've been very helpful as far as weighing in as we've started discussing this. But let me give you a hypothetical. And I'm making these numbers up. I don't know what the numbers are. Let's say that 97% of the calls we get today are appropriately and easily handled with one dispatcher. And it's that 3% that need more help. What if 1% of that 3% needs more than two, needs three or more, because it's so complex, so there's so much coming in at once, which you would have at the regional center, which we wouldn't have if we did what your suggestion, which is double what we have. Aren't there some calls that even need more than two?
When the stuff hits the fan, it's usually everybody's involved. One of the things that I heard here was mutual aid, fire mutual aid right now is very well organized, works fine with individual centers. It all goes through the district, which our district happens to be in Ashland. All we have to do when we have a fire is notify Ashland, and they take care of the dispatch above and beyond our first alarm. It doesn't have to involve our dispatchers. All they have to do is make that call, the dispatcher tells. But by and large, when you have major emergencies, everybody is involved. Everybody, each individual town. I was just listening the night before last, Michigan State incidents there, and they had it very well covered with individual dispatch centers. Does that answer it, Kathy?
Yes. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Thorburn before we say goodnight to him? So thank you, Mr. Thorburn, for your thoughts. They are well appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
So Vanessa, can you bring over Patty Fiore?
Hi again.
Hi.
I have 4 questions, which could be pretty quick. I agree this is moving really fast. Could you confirm that this is not a decision that needs to go to town meeting to regionalize the dispatch?
Yes, we can confirm it does not need to go to town meeting.
And in regard to the presentation of cost savings, how does the ambulance fund fit into that? The money that the town currently garners from the ambulance fund, where would that happen? Would we still be getting that? And also in regard to the cost savings, as the previous speaker was saying, if we still have to cover a dark station 24/7, is there really a staffing cost savings? And my last question is, would the committee, the regional committee, consider other sites if that in itself proves to be a stumbling block to Southborough committee to this?
Can you repeat the last one? There was one word I didn't understand. You said, what was the first?
Which question? The one about the
last
ambulance fund?
No,
Okay.
last one.
So the last question was, will the regional committee consider other sites if that in itself proves to be the stumbling block for Southborough taking part in this?
So I'm going to jump to the ambulance fund one first and explain where that one's coming from. So Ms. Fiore came to the select board office hours last night where Sam and I were. Bonnie Faniff was there too. And so the discussion was as follows. We talked about the revenue for the ambulance fund, what it is today, roughly. And then the question came up, when you're operating the ambulance calls out of the regional center, how do we know where the calls will be directed to. For example, if the call is from Southborough, do we know that our ambulances are going to be called? Is that part of the agreement? Or if someone answering the call happens to, for some reason, prefer Westboro ambulances, what's going to prevent them from dispatching a Westboro ambulance to come to Southborough? Or if you've got a call that is someplace else, and for some reason we're going to handle those, who's going to determine what of the three towns gets called? I never even thought about that till they got brought up last night. I don't have an answer, but that's where this question is coming from.
Thank
So-
you for that concise explanation. I was trying to make it very simple and less, yeah.
All right, so I've explained the
That's the
question, but I
question.
don't have the answer. Anyone want to take that one?
So Chief Achilles has
Is
his
here.
hand raised, and I would defer to him first, otherwise I can.
Okay, so can we bring over the chief?
Yes.
And while he's coming over, the question on the cost of the solution to the dark station, whatever that is, should be factored in. So by June 1st, we should have that factored into our economic analysis of this. It's whenever we decide, we need to put that in as far as the cost goes. So we really do understand the full financial picture here. So I think that one's fairly easy to do. Hey, Chief.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As far as the question that you raised and Ms. Fiore raised, it wouldn't be allowed that you'd be dispatching units not in your jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. We have defined areas of responsibility. There would be no crossover or preference. So I can assure you that any ambulance or fire call or police call in town of Southborough would be directed to our units, as would Westboro do for Westboro and Grafton.
Would that
So
be unless
Chief-
there's a crisis kind of thing? I mean, I could imagine an event that would require more ambulances than we have, right? So
No,
they would
I understand
call
that I'm saying-
delayed.
For the primary call,
Okay,
and
primary.
that would be ours, and then any other unit that we would request now would still go through the regional dispatch. So we determine our run cards, not the district, not the regional dispatch. So if we want we have defined run cards for ambulances and fire trucks. The district would have to follow our policies.
So we would expect no difference in ambulance fund revenues. By
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
That's the bottom line question, Sam, is that answer. So, okay, so that's that one. So Chief, you're welcome to stay. So Patty's last question was whether the site, if we decided on a different site, what does that mean? So right now, Patty, I don't think any of the three towns are planning on looking at a different site. I think that the decision to use the site that has been selected is done deal. But I do hope that before June 1st, the select board agrees to bring someone in to assure us beyond any reasonable doubt that this site will be safe for people to work long hours on, short-term and long-term. And if that's the case, then I don't know why we would be looking at another site. If that's not the case, if they come in and say this is a problem and everybody concurs, then I would think that that would be a problem. But I'm just one person as far as trying to answer that question. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one?
Kathy, if I may, and earlier you had spoken about an independent, non-involved party determining the site being safe. Wouldn't that have been already the EPA and Department of Environmental Services? I don't think they would allow, and maybe I'm wrong, and I talked to Melissa a little bit also, but I would think that they would not allow this occupancy if it wasn't safe. And I think, wouldn't that be correct?
Common sense. Chief Achilles says that. After what I've read, I just want to be absolutely sure about this. And when I read that there's certain types of facilities and businesses that are not allowed to use it. I don't understand why certain people can be there and certain people can't be there. So I still would just like, I know that people at in the government agencies know what they're talking about, but I'd still would like one chance, because we really didn't talk about this very much as far as how dirty the site would be. This has come up fairly late in this process. So I would like for, another chance for someone to come in and totally assure us that this site is safe to put human beings on for long hours.
That's
So
on
just
the
to be
list,
clear that you're
too.
thinking, and maybe I misunderstand, but at this point, you don't concur or with the EPA and DES?
I didn't say that either. I'm
Oh,
definitely not.
okay, then I'm just
No, I didn't
checking.
say that. No, I just, call it a triple check, quadruple check. I just want
Okay.
to hear from one more person that knows this area and is truly lives this, all day long, that says, oh, you guys are going to be fine. There's nothing to worry about.
Okay.
Okay. Patty, did we answer all your questions?
Yes, I think so. I hope you consider this seriously and the timeline that's involved in the process moving forward. But I thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else with a hand up. I'm surprised. Okay, all right, so anybody else want to say anything before we actually vote on approving the IMA with the proposed changes that have been put on the table by Andrew and Sam tonight? Chelsea, walk us through what you're going to do as far as these changes go to get them done in a timely fashion so this could be signed before March 2nd.
So the boards last night, Grafton and Westboro's motion allowed their chairs to make small changes that I would categorize these as. So Mark and I will circle back with the other two towns and their chairs to get those updated, and assuming that there's no issues, then I think we would not need to meet again before we sign it. There were no, so I'll say that the two towns did not have any changes last night.
So is everybody happy with that proposed process, which is Chelsea takes these final set of changes back, makes the changes on the draft IMA, gets them to Westboro and Grafton, to the select board chairs of each, making sure they're okay with those, and then comes back to us and says, we're done as far as it goes and we're ready to sign?
Not quite happy, but satisfied.
Okay.
Sam, do you want to see it before I send it?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I still have a number of questions I want answered, so I'm ready to sign, but ready to consider looking at things before June 1st.
Because the vote tonight is, I think we're done. We're saying we're ready to sign when the final document is ready to sign before March 2nd. So who are the signatories, Chelsea?
All of us.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So Chelsea, I think you deserve to make this motion after all the work you've done.
Okay. And just one question. So the motion actually has to authorize the chair to execute said agreement. Do you want me to say vice chair, or do you want to do chair? Because like the other towns all had their chairs and we had our vice chair.
I thought you just said all of us are signing it.
We are. I just didn't change the language from what they did last night, and it's kind of a moot point because they didn't have any changes to the agreement, but their motion included the opportunity for their chair to bless any changes that we had. So I was just going to keep the same motion.
Okay, now
So
I
I'm
know.
just going to have chair. So I don't think it impacts you at all. I just want you to know that you're in the motion.
Well, I don't think we're going to make any more changes. I think we're done tonight. As long
We're
as,
not.
as long as
right.
they agree with these changes, right?
Right.
Okay,
I just,
so,
okay, so I just didn't want you to be surprised when you heard chair was in there.
okay, I'm not surprised.
Okay. All right. So I move the town accept the provisions of sections 18O to 18B inclusive of chapter 6A of the general laws, providing for the establishment of a regional 911 communication district together with the towns of Grafton and Westboro, and the construction or siting, administration, operation, and maintenance of a regional 911 emergency communication center by the district under the provisions of the proposed district agreement filed with the select board, and to execute and to authorize the chair to execute said agreement with any non-substantive changes made prior to the submission of the grant application.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
and Cook is nay, so 4-1-0. Okay, this is a big deal. So that is it for the night. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
Cook is aye. So good night, everyone. See you on the 28th.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night. Night, Mark. Night, Vanessa. Good night, Chief.